The Throne of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1126, The 10,000 Ren Mountains. Xia Xingchen's spiritual power level finally reached level 49. Although it is only one step away from the level 50 S-class Mecha Master. However, it is extremely difficult to cross this step. In human history, there are countless geniuses with amazing talents, but they ultimately failed to overcome this insurmountable difficulty and become an S-class Mecha Master. To become an S-class Mecha Master, you need not only talent and hard work, but also luck. Brother, you ask me how I became an S-class Mecha Master? I thought for a while and said, I was stuck at level 49 for 2 years. 2 whole years. I have never been so frustrated, cowardly, and pessimistic. During these 2 dark years, I even thought that I would never be able to become an S-class Mecha Master in my life. Fortunately, I crossed this hurdle, found myself again, and regained my confidence. It's just, I heard that it is more difficult for an S-class Mecha Master to become a legendary Mecha Master. With your talent, you have been stuck for as many as 2 years. Xia Xingchen's face changed slightly. I is the second most talented person Xia Xingchen has ever seen. The first in talent is undoubtedly Carissa. However, even I was stuck at level 49 for 2 years. 2 years. Xia Xingchen sighed, looking worried. The situation on beta was tense, and a few months could still be enough. In 2 years, the starship army sent by Kinyan had already crossed the endless sea of stars, rushed from Shinean star to Beta star, and smashed the entire planet to pieces with electromagnetic cannons. Xia Xingchen didn't have that much time. So, Xia Xingchen had to ask Roger again. Roger once again taught Xia Xingchen a lesson, scolded him bloody, and told him to practice with peace of mind, and not to think about unnecessary things. Time passed quickly. Half-year evaluation. Xia Xingchen showed his strength and finally passed the Colossus space and entered the next level, the world-destroying disaster. The world-destroying disaster space is a planet, huge and incomparable. There are no living creatures on the planet, only endless zombies. These zombies are very powerful, and their attack and defense are extremely amazing. Although Xia Xingchen tried his best to get Roger to recognize him, he was still exhausted and failed at the world-destroying disaster level. I also entered the world-destroying disaster, but he did not last as long as Xia Xingchen. Just when Xia Xingchen thought he had secured the first place in the half-year evaluation, a shocking news came out. Someone broke through the 4 levels after the world-destroying disaster and entered the 12th level of the dimensional space, achieving the first place. Zhang Yan, who was the last one with Xia Xingchen. He had been stuck in the 4th level of the dark space. However, this time he actually broke through the 12th level in one fell swoop. Even Roger was very surprised by Zhang Yan's sudden rise. Afterwards, another more shocking news exploded in Xia Xingchen's ears. Zhang Yan mastered the domain. Zhang Yan's domain, called Wanren Mountain, is a very rare defensive domain. The domain was unfolded, with Zhang Yan as the center, and it seemed that there were layers of Wanren mountains all around. All the attacks of the enemy could not penetrate this layer of defense. Zhang Yan relied on the power of his domain to push forward, ignoring the attacks, and advancing all the way to the 12th floor. Zhang Yan gave up at the 12th floor, not because his domain could not withstand the attacks of this layer. It was simply because Zhang Yan had just mastered the domain and did not understand it thoroughly enough, resulting in a large amount of mental power wasted. Therefore, his mental power was exhausted and he had to give up. Defensive domain. Rare. Zhang Yan comprehended the domain at the age of 25. This speed can be ranked in the top 100 in human history. Roger was also relieved to learn that someone had comprehended the domain in just half a year. Zhang Yan. With your domain power and training, it is more than enough to pass the 20th floor. However, the dimensional cube is no longer of much significance to you. The performance of your Saturn mecha is no longer in line with your strength. You need a new domain mecha. Roger looked at the silent Zhang Yan with a smile on his face. In the final trial, you won the top 3 and are already a member of the King Star Pirates. I will introduce you to Dan Fangsheng, the mecha designer of the King Star Pirates. He will help you design and manufacture new domain mechas. Master Dan Fang, one of the top 3 mecha masters in the human race. Zhang Yan was shocked and immediately knelt down to thank him. Thank you, Master. Well, go. You are still young and have an infinite future. Your destination should be the vast starry sky, not the small gold and silver stars. Roger nodded slightly. Follow the master's teachings. Zhang Yan knelt down, stood up, and looked proudly at his fellow disciples behind him. Fellow disciples, I have mastered the domain. If any of you are not convinced, just chase me. I will prove with facts that I, Zhang Yan, must be better than any of you. Everyone was speechless, and each of them looked embarrassed. After half a year of getting along day and night, among the 10 disciples, even Xia Xingchen had a good relationship with the others, and they called each other brothers according to their age. Except Zhang Yan. He was the eldest, usually silent and extremely unsociable. He never communicated with others, but practiced silently alone. Xia Xingchen never had any bad feelings towards such an honest person. Therefore, when other disciples secretly criticized Zhang Yan for being unsociable, Xia Xingchen would say a few words for him, saying that he was dull, liked to be alone, and was still good at heart. Now, Xia Xingchen knew. Zhang Yan's personality is not as simple as dull. Zhang Yan is arrogant. Arrogant to the extreme. He was so arrogant that he didn't even want to talk to them or communicate with them. Arrogant. What are you talking about? I'm just a few years older. When I'm your age, I'll definitely be stronger than you. Isn't it just a domain? I'll be able to master it sooner or later. It's just a useless defensive domain, a turtle shell. What's the use? The disciples were all young and full of vigor, and they were immediately furious when Zhang Yan despised them in public. Zhang Yan snorted coldly, looked at Xia Xingchen deeply, and whispered, "What I said just now was not for others to hear, but for you, Xia Xingchen. Only you are qualified to catch up with me. However, you are only qualified." After saying that, Zhang Yan turned around and left in full view of everyone. Facing Zhang Yan's provocation, Xia Xingchen did not answer, with a calm look on his face. He didn't care about the petty issues of who was stronger and who was weaker between his brothers. Xia Xingchen cared about Beta Star, the Galactic Empire, and the safety of the entire human race. The next day, the King's space carrier landed on the Gold and Silver Star, and Zhang Yan boarded the ship and left. Zhang Yan's provocation made the disciples extremely angry and unwilling. Therefore, these young geniuses put in all their efforts and practiced 10 times as hard as before. 1 month later, another person realized his own domain. The genius 1RUI. Chapter 11:27 Omniscience means invincibility. 1RUI's domain is called 10,000 Swords Hill. When the domain was deployed, the entire space was eroded, and a desolate hill with 10,000 sharp swords appeared. It was the same as the scene in the meditation map that 1RUI used for meditation since childhood. 10,000 Swords Hill is an offensive domain. Once it is deployed, the combat power is amazing. Relying on this 10,000 Swords Hill, 1RUI drove the Sword God Mecha and broke into the 15th floor. This time, even Roger was shocked. Zhang Yan was originally at the peak of S level, with a mental power of 58. It can be said that it was a natural thing for him to comprehend the domain under Roger's guidance. However, 1RUI was young, only 18 years old. The mental power level was only 52. With such a low mental power level, he could actually comprehend the domain. And it was a 10,000 Swords Hill known for its unparalleled offensive power. Roger, the strongest man in the world, was also extremely surprised and shouted genius. Just like Zhang Yan. After 1RUI comprehended the domain, Roger arranged him to join the King Star Pirates and adventure with the Star Pirates. "Brother, I'm leaving tomorrow." 1RUI came to find Xia Xingchen, looking worried. "Haha, don't worry. I'll find you soon." Xia Xingchen smiled and patted 1RUI's shoulder. Since ancient times, separation has been painful. However, there is no feast that will last forever. There will be a day of separation. Really? 1RUI looked at Xia Xingchen with admiration. Of course it's true. Xia Xingchen smiled. To be honest, I feel that I'm about to master the domain. That's good. Brother, I'll wait for you in the outside world. Wan Rui's expression relaxed, and a smile appeared on his face. The next day, Wan Rui left the gold and silver star. It was not noticeable when Wan Rui was around, but after he left, Xia Xingchen suddenly felt that his side became empty and a little uncomfortable. What is a domain? Roger has said more than once that it is an extension of human spiritual power. Human spiritual power is released outward to affect matter and energy. This ability is called superpowers. The spiritual power that Xia Xingchen mastered was the most common superpower. It could interfere with and affect many substances, but it also meant that the level of fineness in manipulating matter and energy was not as good as that of a single superpower user. For example, Wan Rui's superpower was controlling metals. As the name suggests, he could only manipulate metals. Electric superpower users manipulated electrical energy. Fire superpower users manipulated flames. And domains were the further use and extension of superpowers. Everyone's mental power attributes were different, and their superpowers were different, so were their domains. The ways of manipulating energy and interfering with matter were also different. Even Roger could only vaguely explain. Mastering domains actually has nothing to do with the level of mental power. What's important is the understanding of the laws of the universe. Of course, the higher the level of mental power, the deeper the understanding of the laws of the universe. If the laws are thoroughly understood, then controlling domains is a natural thing. Laws. Xia Xingchen sat on the gold and silver star, on a high tower, looking up at the endless starry sky, and carefully comprehending. Wan Rui comprehended the law of controlling metals. What Zhang Yan comprehended was also related to his earth-related ability. In other words, the more refined the ability of the person who controls energy, the deeper his understanding of the law. My ability is mental telekinesis. I can control any object, but I'm not proficient in it. Wan Rui can drive the sword god Mecha and control hundreds of flying swords at the same time. And I can only use my mental power clone to control 6 spiral flying drills. Xia Xingchen sighed. Laws. The universe is full of laws. But what are the laws? It can only be understood, not expressed in words. Xia Xingchen sat on the top of the tower for 7 days and 7 nights, but got nothing. Just when he was disappointed, he suddenly remembered Zioka's reminder. Master, when you have time, go and comprehend the life scroll. It is not a simple painting, it contains infinite cosmic mysteries. Life scroll. Xia Xingchen's eyes lit up. The life scroll was in his personal space. He had been practicing recently and actually forgot it. Swish. The scroll of life unfolded immediately. In the portable space, Xia Xingchen's head shadow appeared faintly, staring at the white scroll on the ground, and looking at it carefully. Time passed. The scroll of life was covered with ancient patterns and mysterious symbols. Originally, Xia Xingchen couldn't understand it at all. He just felt that he had been looking at it for a long time, and his mind became drowsy and sleepy. This time, Xia Xingchen was shocked to find that the pattern of the scroll of life that he couldn't understand originally emerged and turned into a 3-dimensional picture. The 3-dimensional picture was originally very blurry, but as time went by, it became clearer and clearer. Countless profound symbols rotated in the air, constantly combining exquisitely, and became a complete whole. 10 days passed. Xia Xingchen stayed up all night and was intoxicated. Finally, he saw it clearly. The ancient patterns on the scroll of life eventually linked into 2 long black chains. The 2 chains were entangled with each other to form a double helix structure diagram. DNA. The scroll of life turned out to be a section of the DNA double helix structure diagram. Xia Xingchen seemed to have realized something. 3 months later, Xia Xingchen walked down from the tower and met Roger. Master, I have mastered the domain. Xia Xingchen's voice was a little excited. You already mastered the domain? Roger was shocked again and blinked his eyes. You are still an A-level mecha master. How can you master the domain? In fact, I have mastered it. It's just, I feel very weak. Master, a person can only have one domain, right? Xia Xingchen shook his head and bit his lip, very distressed. There can only be one domain. Try to use it, Roger urged. Swish. Xia Xingchen's eyes suddenly became blank, and a spherical space of 100 meters in size spread out with him as the center. There was no change in the spherical space. I feel your mental power eroding the space. It is indeed a domain. But what's the use of this? Roger asked. Everything that happens within a 100-meter space. None of it escapes my perception. My domain seems to be perception oriented. Xia Xingchen looked helpless. I can feel the flapping of mosquito wings and the digging of underground moles. I can hear the human heartbeat and the short circuit of a certain circuit in the mecha, and sparks. I can even hear some human thoughts. However, my domain does not seem to help my combat effectiveness at all. You can hear human thoughts? Roger was shocked. I have never heard of such a domain. A distance of 100 meters is indeed a bit too small. However, don't be discouraged. Your mental power level is too low. Maybe your domain is still incomplete. And for the improvement of combat, remember one sentence: omniscience is invincible. Chapter 11:28. Once a teacher, always a father. Omniscience is invincibility. Hearing Roger's words, Xia Xingchen's heart was overwhelmed with shock. This is your own domain. How to use it specifically, I suggest you practice it in battle. Roger smiled and said, you are still very young. It takes a long time to hone yourself. I can give you 10 opportunities to enter the dimension cube. 10 times. Xia Xingchen was immediately moved. The opportunity to enter the dimension cube is rare. You can only get one chance if you clean the gold and silver star for a week and perform well. However, Xia Xingchen shook his head and whispered, Master, I want to leave gold and silver star immediately. Oh. Roger raised his eyebrows and praised, alright. It will be more beneficial for you to venture into the starry sky. These 10 opportunities to enter the dimension cube will be remembered for the time being. I will immediately notify the King spacecraft carrier to pick you up. Master, I have something important to do. I can't go on an adventure with the Star Pirates for the time being. Xia Xingchen whispered. This. Roger's face suddenly darkened. After a long silence, Roger waved his hand and said, never mind. I have also heard a little about your deeds. You have offended a few pirates. They have sent many starships and are besieging your territory, right? Xia Xingchen nodded. My fiancé and many friends are on the territory planet. Xia Xingchen, do you know? Your identity is different now. You are the apprentice of the Pirate King. You go out to travel in the starry sky, representing my face? Roger said. Master, what do you mean? Xia Xingchen looked up at Roger, confused. Swish. As soon as Roger stretched out his hand, a spherical signal generator on the table flew up into the air and landed in Xia Xingchen's hand. He said domineeringly, I, Roger, the Star Pirate King, have lived in seclusion on the Gold and Silver Star for more than 50 years. Many people in the starfield have already forgotten my name. They only know about the so-called Star Pirate Overlord and don't take me seriously. Xia Xingchen, you are Roger's apprentice. You can't be bullied. If anyone dares to go against you, you must teach them a lesson. Let them remember the great name of Roger, the Star Pirate King. Yes, Master. Xia Xingchen was delighted. He thought Roger wanted him to keep a low profile. It turned out to be the opposite. Roger wanted him to make a name for himself. However, your current strength is still too weak. Although you have comprehended the domain, you are not yet an S-class mecha master. The signal generator I gave you can call the King space carrier. Don't use it unless it is absolutely necessary. Because you have a special identity, you are a member of the King's Star Pirates. Once you call the King, it means that you have finished your private affairs and are going to the King to adventure with the Star Pirates. Roger instructed. Thank you, Master. Xia Xingchen knelt down and kowtowed. Although Roger often scolded Xia Xingchen on weekdays. In fact, Roger was just strict with his apprentice. Roger was like a strict father. He had a sharp tongue, but a soft heart, and was extremely protective of his shortcomings. Xia Xingchen, go ahead. You are my most valued apprentice. Remember, think twice before doing anything. You are still young, and have an unlimited future. Don't act on impulse. Apart from your own strength, everything else is just a passing cloud. Roger repeatedly explained. Thank you, Master. Xia Xingchen thanked him again. Watching Xia Xingchen leave, Roger was silent. Mad God. Roger waved and called his servant in. Master. Mad God knelt down respectfully in front of Roger. The 4-star pirate overlords, Blackbird, Daughter of Space and Time, and Flame Louis, seemed to have heard something, and left their territory, and hid near the gold and silver star. They are likely to ambush Xia Xingchen. You and the evil dragon will secretly protect Xia Xingchen. Escort him to leave the gold and silver star region smoothly, Roger ordered. Yes. Mad God nodded, and turned to leave the room. Xia Xingchen, your master can only help you so far. Alas, I'm also a clay Buddha crossing the river, and I can't protect myself. Roger was the only one left in the room. He sighed and looked lonely. Whoosh. The Azure Dragon Mech passed through the atmosphere of the gold and silver star like a reverse shooting meteor. The Azure Dragon Mech was equipped with a jump engine. Therefore, there is no need for a spaceship, and only one mech can travel long distances in the stars. It's very lonely during the trip. If possible, Xia Xingchen still likes to travel on a spaceship with friends. The Kinglang Mecha flew out of the atmosphere, and Xia Xingchen stopped in the outer orbit. He looked down at the gold and silver star, tears in his eyes. I don't know how long it will take for me to see Master again, after leaving gold and silver star this time. Although they didn't spend much time together, less than a year. However, Xia Xingchen already had a deep affection for Roger, and regarded him as his master and his other father. Once a teacher, always a father. The information is correct. Xia Xingchen really left gold and silver star. In the dark universe, a spaceship turned on the Mirage system, and became completely transparent. Blackbird, wearing a black cloak, looked at the signal that appeared on the radar, and a look of joy appeared on his face. It's out as expected. The End opened his eyes, and his eyes were scarlet. It's out. Flame Louis sighed. It seems that we are right to go back. Xia Xingchen must have received the news that we have returned to the vicinity of Beta Star, so she left the gold and silver star. How could they have thought that we were luring the snake out of its hole and killing it with a surprise attack? This is near the gold and silver star, Roger's territory. Would it be bad if we robbed and killed his apprentice here? The Daughter of Time and Space Catalina bit her lip and hesitated. Don't worry. The figure of Yindu walked out of the darkness with a smile on her face. The god's messenger has found out through secret techniques. Roger's soul is in an extremely weak state, and he can't even leave the gold and silver star. Otherwise, with Roger's flamboyant temper, how could he live in seclusion on the gold and silver star? That's good. We rob and kill Xia Xingchen. This is the only chance. Wait a minute. Catalina will block the space. Prevent Xia Xingchen from using the jump to escape. Blackbird ordered loudly. Okay. Catalina nodded. She was ready. Swish. Xia Xingchen left the gold and silver star, his eyes fixed on the ultra-wave detector of the Azure Dragon Mecha. He was on guard against an ambush. The detector on the Mecha has too low power and a too small detection range. I'd better jump as soon as possible and enter the subspace to be safe. Xia Xingchen thought to himself, and immediately started the jump engine. Buzz. The space vibrated slightly and made a buzzing sound. The entrance to the wormhole of the subspace should have appeared in front of him, but the result was different from what Xia Xingchen expected, and the space did not react at all. This is. Xia Xingchen's face changed slightly. Space confinement. Space confinement of Katerina, the Daughter of Time and Space. She is ambushing me nearby. Chapter 11:29 1 verses 5. Xia Xingchen had seen Catalina's space ability before, but last time Catalina was far away, and Xia Xingchen was lucky enough to break the imprisonment with a drill, and escaped with serious injuries. This time, Catalina was much closer. Whoosh 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 whoosh. In the dark background of the universe, 5 mechas of different shapes appeared out of thin air, and approached Xia Xingchen. Blackbird, and Flame Louis, Catalina, and Hidden Poison. It's you again. When Xia Xingchen saw these 5 mechas, his pupils shrank to the size of a needle tip, and a look of anger appeared on his face. In Xia Xingchen's mind, he couldn't help but think of how he was chased by these people all the way a few months ago, and even to the infinite star abyss. He almost committed suicide. Along the way, Xia Xingchen slept in the wind and rain, suffered a lot, and almost collapsed mentally. The humiliating experience appeared in front of Xia Xingchen one by one. I can't escape from the space confinement. Besides, if I escape, I will bring shame to my master. Xia Xingchen did not move, driving the King Lang mecha floating in the universe. Xia Xingchen knew the strength of the 5 Blackbirds very well. They were all S-level top mecha masters. Among them, Blackbird and End were the strongest, while Flame Louis and Catalina were a little weaker. Hidden Poison was very mysterious and had never made a move, so his combat effectiveness was unknown. 1 against 5. It's very difficult. But, after more than half a year of practice, I'm no longer the same as before. Give it a try. Xia Xingchen clenched his fists tightly. Huh. Xia Xingchen didn't escape this time, but stopped there and waited for us. Blackbird drove a completely black mecha, with astonishment on his ugly face, and then he laughed. You jumped out of our hands again and again before. Do you think we really can't do anything to you? Little guy, you are too self-righteous. Blackbird has been roaming the Starry Sea for decades, and he has never seen a young man as arrogant as Xia Xingchen. That's right, Xia Xingchen is Roger's apprentice, and has been training with Roger on the Gold and Silver Star for more than half a year. However, even for Roger, how much can Xia Xingchen change in half a year? How can a mere A-class mecha master compete head-on with 5 S-class mecha masters? If this is not arrogance and self-righteousness, what else can it be? Whoosh. The mechas of the 5 S-class mecha masters are extremely fast, and the distance with Xia Xingchen is shortened. Be careful. End warned. He had suffered at the hands of Xia Xingchen before. A failure is a lesson. No matter how much he despised Xia Xingchen in his heart, he responded solemnly at this moment. Xia Xingchen is Roger's apprentice after all. Roger is the most powerful person in the world. Well, Blackbird, you really don't take me seriously. You just rushed over so carelessly. Xia Xingchen snorted coldly, and the right hand of the King Lang mecha opened, and the light condensed, and a silver spiral spear appeared. The spiral spear is different from the previous form. The previous spiral spear, to put it bluntly, looked like a drill bit for a spear, and the spear body was covered with spiral patterns. However, the spiral spear in the hands of the King Lang mecha at this moment was formed by 2 silver spirals intertwined with each other, which looked very much like the double helix structure of DNA. This is the double helix spear that Xia Xingchen comprehended from the picture of life. The lethality is 10 times that of the previous one. There are endless mysteries hidden in the picture of life, and even Colossus clone Zioka, who is a quasi-celestial being, is amazed. During this period, the mysteries of the universe that Xia Xingchen comprehended from the picture of life are just the surface, but they have been infinitely useful. Xia Xingchen obediently die. Blackbird drove the mecha less than 10,000 meters away from Xia Xingchen and laughed coldly. Death. You are the ones who will die. Xia Xingchen also had a sneer on his face, and he was murderous. Xia Xingchen's mecha is faster than before. I feel his mental power fluctuations are much stronger than before. Yindo is good at assassination, and has a strong perception ability. He immediately felt the difference between Xia Xingchen and before. Want to escape? Get past me first. Flame Louis smiled coldly, driving the lava mech forward, and the double barrels behind him sprayed out endless flames. Fire should not burn in a vacuum. However, the flame released by Flame Louis is fueled by mental power, and it is also burning fiercely in the starry sky, and turned into a huge vortex of flames. It's as if the entire galaxy is burning. Flame power user. Xia Xingchen frowned slightly. The flame power is indeed powerful. I don't know how many times stronger the power of Flame Louis is than that of Hanglian. But, break it for me. Xia Xingchen shouted, and the double helix spear in the hand of the King Lang mech was sent out. The spear light sword. Thunder sparks leaped around the tip of the spear, and in front of the sparks was a blue thunder beam, like a lightning bolt suddenly breaking through the sky. Rumble. A dull sound of thunder. The spear light was like a rising sun, piercing into the huge vortex of flames, stirring it wildly. The order of the flaming vortex became disordered, and began to collide with each other. In the end, the entire flaming vortex, like a punctured balloon, went out with a bang. The Azure Dragon mech held the double helix spear, and continued to move forward, hitting the Flaming Louis in the center of the flaming vortex with the force of thunder. Flaming Louis was shocked, and the lava mech raised his hands, on which were 2 huge lava shields. Not only can it defend, but it can also attack, both offensive and defensive. Bang. The double helix spear collided directly with the lava shield, making a loud explosion that resounded throughout the universe. What? Flaming Louis' face turned pale in an instant. He felt that the spear in the hands of the Azure Dragon Mech had extremely terrifying destructive power. The power was so strong that it instantly penetrated the defense of the lava mech. The lava shield was instantly shattered. Then, the Azure Dragon Mech waved his hands, and the double helix spear was like lightning, like a silver lightning, and shot horizontally towards the cockpit of the lava mech. Bang! Although Flame Louis raised his right arm to block in time, the double helix spear was not far behind and just swept the joint of the lava mech's right arm, instantly breaking it. Whoosh! The huge body of the lava mech was directly attacked by the huge force, and flew to the side. It flew for thousands of meters before it barely stabilized its body. Flame Louis is not even a match for Xia Xingchen. Horrible. Xia Xingchen's mech has twice the strength and speed as before. It is even far superior to us. Why? Why has it improved so terribly in just half a year? The other star pirate overlords were all shocked at this moment. Omniscience is invincibility. Even Xia Xingchen was shocked at this moment, looking down at his hands and sighing softly. The Azure Dragon Mech is a mech with extremely comprehensive performance. If there is a shortcoming, it is that the close-range general attack does not cause enough damage, and it can only rely on the two medium-range attacks of Thunder Breath and Spiral Drill to make up for it. Whether it was the Thunder Breath or the Spiral Drill, the mental power consumption of Xia Xingchen was amazing. Xia Xingchen was a martial arts genius that even the martial arts master Lester nodded in praise of. However, the inadequate performance of the Azure Dragon Mecha prevented Xia Xingchen from exerting his martial arts talent. Chapter 11:30 A surprise counterattack. After the magic weapon system condensed the spiritual power and condensed it into a double helix spear, the weapon damage increased tenfold, which also greatly compensated for the close combat ability of the Qinglang Mecha, allowing Xia Xingchen's martial arts talent to be fully utilized. Even the fiery Louis, who was a star pirate overlord, was not Xia Xingchen's opponent. Xia Xingchen. Want to escape? It's not that easy. Blackbird roared, drove the mecha up, roared to stop Xia Xingchen. The mecha driven by Blackbird was completely black, and the dark mist behind him condensed into 8 huge octopus tentacles, like whips, fierce and extremely fierce, whipping the Qinglang Mecha. Magic weapon system. Xia Xingchen recognized at a glance that Blackbird's mecha was also equipped with the magic weapon system produced by the Tang Dynasty Group. The number of imitation magic weapon systems of the Tang Dynasty Group is extremely rare and expensive. However, with the identity and financial resources of Blackbird, the star pirate overlord, it is not too difficult to buy a replica of the magic weapon system. However, the magic weapon system in Xia Xingchen's hand is the original version, which is more than 10 times more powerful than those imitation magic weapon systems. Bang bang bang. The right hand of the Qinglang Mecha is like the wind, swinging the double helix spear forcefully, forming a gun curtain in the starry sky. The octopus tentacles were beaten to pieces and turned into black mist and disappeared, but in the blink of an eye they condensed again and whipped towards the Qinglang Mecha. This is the power of the magic weapon system. The weapon is made of mental power and will not be damaged at all. Even if it is broken up, it only needs to consume mental power to condense it again. Hoo. Blackbird was panting. Even as strong as he was, he kept using the magic weapon system to condense his own telekinetic weapon, and the mental power consumed was also very terrifying, making his head covered with fine beads of sweat. The end. Hidden poison. Katerina, why don't you three come to help? Blackbird shouted angrily. The Mechas of the 3-star pirate overlords were slower than Blackbird's, and they rushed over at this time, ready to besiege Xia Xingchen. They are interstellar pirates, and they are best at using their strength to intimidate the weak and their numbers to bully the few. Not good. If we are surrounded and attacked from both sides, the situation will be bad. Xia Xingchen's pupils suddenly shrank, and thoughts flooded into his mind. Flying in the sky, Xia Xingchen shouted. The 1,000-meter-long sky dragon wings behind the Qinglang Mecha spread out, shining with the brilliant light of the Milky Way, and flapped gently. Swish. The Qinglang Mecha turned into a stream of light, and disappeared in an instant. Chase. Catalina's space confinement has not expired. Xia Xingchen's mecha cannot use jumps, and it can't escape far. Blackbird roared with a ferocious face. At this moment, Flame Louie has also woken up from his coma. 5S level mecha masters manipulated the mecha and used the teleport skill. They immediately turned into 5 streams of light and followed closely behind the Kinglang mecha. In the starry sky, there were 2 mechas hiding their bodies, and no one noticed them at all. The 2 people who had been watching the battle from the side and did not take action were the 2 legendary mecha masters, Zilong and Kuang Shen, who had received Roger's order to help escort Xia Xingchen to safety. Zilong, you severely taught these little guys who didn't know the rules last time, but they didn't remember it at all. They even dared to approach the gold and silver stars. Kuang Shen clenched his fists tightly, his face full of anger. It's all for your face. Zilong snorted coldly, if you hadn't given that guy named Blackbird a King Silver coin, I would have killed them all long ago. Zilong rolled his eyes at Kuang Shen and said lightly, King Silver coin. Kuang Shen scratched his head and smirked, haha, it seems to be true. However, the King Silver coin can only save his life once. He is so excessive, even if he used to be respectful to me. But he broke the master's rules, so I still have to kill them. Kuang Shen clenched his fists, making crackling sounds, with a ferocious smile on his face, and a strong murderous aura emanating from his body, ready to take action. Wait a minute. The evil dragon suddenly stopped the mad god and said seriously, the master ordered that we should take action when Xia Xingchen encounters a crisis. But now, he doesn't seem to be in too much trouble. What do you mean? Xia Xingchen can defeat 5S class mecha masters? The mad god shook his head. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Xia Xingchen is only an A-class mecha master. He can tie with an S-class mecha master. It's already an above level performance for him. How is it possible to fight 1 against 5? I don't believe it either. But don't forget that Xia Xingchen has mastered the field. Even the field of perception. The power of laws that the 2 of us have not mastered yet. Maybe a miracle will happen. After all, hasn't Xia Xingchen created enough miracles? The evil dragon's eyes sparkled, and his eyes were full of expectation. Domain. The mad god was stunned and silent for a long time, then nodded and said, it's okay to wait. I'm also very curious about Xia Xingchen's true strength. I always feel that he has some potential. Maybe a life and death battle can force out his potential. However, the 2 of us must watch out and never let Xia Xingchen die. Although the master is very strict with him, we all know the master's temper. The stricter the master is with someone, the more he values that person in his heart. Don't worry. The evil dragon nodded. If Xia Xingchen dies in front of the 2 of us, the master will have to kill us. Swish. Xia Xingchen used traveling in the sky, and the Kinglang mecha flew forward at the maximum speed. Half a year since I last saw you, Catalina's space confinement seems to have become stronger again. I have flown thousands of kilometers, but the jump engine cannot be used yet. Xia Xingchen looked at the jump engine index on the instrument while flying. Among the 5, the most difficult one is actually the daughter of time and space, Katerina. Although her actual combat ability is not strong, her space ability is very rare, which has caused me great trouble. I want to escape from these 5 people, or even defeat them one by one. I have to kill Katerina first. Xia Xingchen secretly calculated in his heart and made a battle plan. And that end, you have to be more careful. There is a celestial being of the mechanical race behind him. His Teoti mecha can evolve as long as he kills people, which is very scary. I just don't know why he would condescend to be under Blackbird. Is there any conspiracy? Xia Xingchen turned his head and saw that the Teoti mecha, which was full of blood and murderous aura, was also following behind him. However, Katerina's strength was not strong to begin with, and she used the space confinement secret technique, which consumed too much energy. At this moment, she was out of touch with the 4 people in front, and fell far behind. There's a chance. Xia Xingchen was delighted, and quietly activated the mirage system of the Azure Dragon Mecha. At the same time, he released a mental clone, disguised as the Azure Dragon Mecha, and continued to fly forward. The Azure Dragon Mecha's main body had quietly turned around at this moment, preparing to strike back. Chapter 1131 Omniscience Field. In the arena of Black Tower Star, Xia Xingchen once fought with a mecha master who was good at using mental clones. The mecha master named Black Prison King could disguise his mental clone as his own mecha and sneak attack in the black smoke. The attack method of Black Prison King was insidious and vicious, which was despicable. However, the trick of disguising his mental clone as his own mecha was very practical. Xia Xingchen was also a psychic who was good at condensing mental clones, so he could use the special skills of Black Prison King at a glance. At this moment, the mental clone disguised as the Azure Dragon mecha flew forward, and the main body was hidden on the side. Blackbird and others did not notice it, and Rawdon flew past the Azure Dragon mecha. Whoosh! The main body of the Azure Dragon mecha flew towards Katerina at the back. 10,000 meters, 9,000 meters, 8,000 meters. The flying speed of the Azure Dragon mech was extremely fast. When it reached 5,000 meters, it emerged from the darkness, holding a silver double helix spear, and bursting with might. Xia Xingchen had fought with Katerina in the underground arena of the Black Tower Star. At that time, in order to hide her identity, Katerina did not drive her daughter of time and space mech, and her strength was less than 50%. She was defeated by Xia Xingchen, which she regarded as a great shame. At this moment, in Katerina's eyes, she saw a violent figure approaching her rapidly from 1,000 meters away. Azure Dragon mech. How come you're back? That figure was clearly Xia Xingchen driving the mech back and forth, holding a double helix spear, and the wings of the sky behind him flapped, and the speed was so fast that she smacked her lips. Xia Xingchen's eyes were red, and he exuded a cold murderous intent, while the Azure Dragon mech exuded a terrifying aura. Looking from afar, it was like a demon descending, which made people tremble with fear. Roger is the Star Pirate King, dominating the galaxy. How domineering. Xia Xingchen is Roger's apprentice. The two have been together for a long time, and he has also been infected with some of Roger's domineering. Although they haven't fought, the spirit has already declined. Bang! 10,000 meters away, Blackbird was driving a mecha, and 8 black octopus tentacles pierced the cockpit of the Azure Dragon mecha from behind. Xia Xingchen, you are finally dead. Blackbird was about to laugh grimly, but he found that the pierced Azure Dragon mecha turned into a stream of light, exploded into a white light in the starry sky, and disappeared without a trace. Fake. Blackbird's heart trembled. I was careless. Not good. Xia Xingchen sneaked up on Katerina. Yandu's perception ability is very strong, and he is good at tracking. He didn't realize that the Azure Dragon mecha in front of him was actually a spiritual clone. At this moment, he turned his head and saw the Azure Dragon mecha holding a spear, boiling with murderous intent, and was immediately surprised. Katerina, be careful. You can definitely hold it off. Blackbird's heart trembled, and an ominous premonition emerged in his mind. Tie him up. Don't let him escape. The End also shouted in a deep voice. Don't worry. Facing the high-speed attack of the Azure Dragon mech, Katerina's pretty face was pale, but her beautiful face bit her red lips tightly. I can hold it off. It's just a male-level mech master. Space-time shield. Katerina shouted delicately, and her already pale face completely lost its blood color at this moment. In front of the space-time girl mech, a translucent shield appeared. This shield is not a solid body, but a pile of countless space cracks, with a thickness of 100 meters. There are countless lights flowing on it, and there are space storms whistling inside. Swoosh. Xia Xingchen, who was attacking at high speed, saw this scene from afar, and frowned tightly. This space-time shield contains the space laws of the universe. Xia Xingchen comprehended the picture of life, and comprehended the field of incomplete body. Because it is an incomplete body, Xia Xingchen doesn't even know the name of his domain. He can only temporarily name it omniscient domain according to its characteristics. Therefore, Xia Xingchen began to have some understanding of the laws of the universe. The universe is vast and boundless, with countless laws. There are also differences in size, strength and weakness between laws. One RUI's 10,000 Swords Hill is the law of sword with extremely strong offensive power. Zhang Yan's 10,000 Ren Mountain is the defensive law of Earth. Whether it is one RUI or Zhang Yan, they have comprehended one-sided and relatively low-level laws. Even so, their combat effectiveness has soared rapidly, and their strength has increased amazingly. The law of space is undoubtedly an important law in the universe. Unfortunately, the greater the law, the more difficult it is to comprehend the domain. The space ability of Catalina, the daughter of time and space, is very rare and gifted, but it is much more difficult for her to comprehend the domain than others. The space-time shield contains the laws of space. Unfortunately, you haven't comprehended the laws enough. Break it for me. Xia Xingchen's eyes became blank, and a transparent field space spread out with him as the center, completely covering this space. Xia Xingchen's field is called Omniscience Field. Everything that happens within 100 meters cannot escape his perception. The space-time shield is not perfect, and has countless flaws, but people who don't understand the laws of space can't see the flaws at all. If you attack rashly, you will touch the space storm, and be backfired by your own attack. However, under Xia Xingchen's Omniscience Field, the flaws of the space-time shield are simply revealed. Whoosh! Xia Xingchen didn't say much, and the double helix spear stabbed out angrily. Above the spearhead, there was a brilliant light, and there was a faint shadow of a black drill, and an astonishing roar broke out. The sharp spearhead, carrying unparalleled power, accurately stabbed the weakest part of the space-time shield. Boom. With just one shot, the space-time shield was destroyed, turning into countless light fragments, scattered like raindrops. How is it possible? Catalina spat out a mouthful of blood, her eyes full of astonishment. Although you are a woman, but you must die today. Xia Xingchen's eyes were cold, and the spear in his hand continued to attack fiercely, attacking the body of the mecha of the daughter of space and time. Blackbird. The end. Master Yindu. Stop him quickly. Catalina couldn't resist. The mecha was already covered with wounds, and she dodged desperately. However, all of Catalina's dodging, defense, and even her thoughts could not escape Xia Xingchen's omniscience. Omniscience is invincible. Xia Xingchen's mind, the words of Master Roger emerged. The perception type of domain is not weaker than the attack type. Even stronger. Kill. The spear in the hand of the Qinglang mecha stabbed fiercely. I can't hold on. Catalina has overdrawn her mental power many times, and the mental power planet in her brain has been completely exhausted. Blood and tears flowed from her eyes, looking very scary. Katrina, Blackbird and the others were also extremely anxious. However, Xia Xingchen's attack was too fierce. The surging attack was like a wave. Finally, Katerina's last defense was broken. Boom. The cockpit of the time and space girl's mecha was pierced by a spear and turned into a fireball in the starry sky. The female star thief overlord, Katerina, was buried in the sea of stars. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1132, The Sound Shook the World. One of the 7-star pirates who dominated the chaotic starfield, the daughter of time and space Catalina, turned into cosmic dust with the explosion of the mecha, leaving no body behind. As soon as Catalina died, the time and space confinement that she had used suddenly dissipated. The starry sky around Xia Xingchen, the original obscure feeling was swept away, became clear again, and the starlight in the distance also reappeared. It turns out that Catalina has confined the space around my body. Xia Xingchen suddenly realized that with Catalina's ability, it was impossible to confine thousands of kilometers of space. I won't play with you anymore. Xia Xingchen turned around and saw that Blackbird, the End and others had already driven the mecha over. He smiled coldly and immediately started the jump engine. Swish. A hole was torn in the space, and inside was the dark subspace. The Qinglang mecha plunged into it and jumped at a terrifying speed close to the speed of light. In a blink of an eye, Xia Xingchen disappeared without a trace, even with the mecha. Blackbird, End and others were suspended in the universe and did not pursue. He escaped by leaping, and we can't catch up. End shook his head. Xia Xingchen's strength is growing too fast. Although his mental power level is very low, his combat power is extremely amazing. He killed Katerina while surrounded by 5 of us. Blackbird's face was distorted, and his eyes were full of shock, looking at the direction where Xia Xingchen disappeared. If this battle gets out, I'm afraid the entire Chaos Star region will be shocked. Xia Xingchen is worthy of being Roger's disciple. Incredible, really incredible. Yindu's face was uncertain. I will report this matter to the god's messenger immediately. If this kid is not eliminated, there will be endless troubles. The 4 S-class mecha masters were ejected and returned to their starships, each with their own thoughts in their hearts. After everyone left, the mechas of Mad God and Evil Dragon emerged. Evil Dragon, why don't you let me do it and kill the 4 of them? Mad God was indignant. Xia, why do you need to attack these people? Just based on the strength Xia Xingchen showed just now, it won't take long for him to kill them one by one. Xia Xingchen is not a good man. Zilong smiled faintly. What an impressive battle. The 2 of us will go back immediately and report everything that happened here to the master. Okay. Xia nodded. Zilong and Xia immediately returned to the Golden and Silver Star to report Xia Xingchen's performance to Roger. Yeah, I know. Roger nodded lightly, but his eyes could not hide his relief. Xia Xingchen, you really didn't let me down. Roger nodded, feeling a little excited. Maybe, you are really the one I'm waiting for. In this robbery outside the Golden and Silver Star, the 5 S-class mecha masters including Blackbird not only failed to capture Xia Xingchen, but were killed by Katerina by Xia Xingchen. Such a shameful thing, of course. Blackbird and others could not tell. However, since there were 2 bystanders, Xia and Zilong, the news could not be concealed. There was even a blurry video on the Empire Skynet, which was a clip of Xia Xingchen brazenly killing Katalina under the siege of Blackbird and others. For a time, Xia Xingchen's name once again became the hottest search term on the internet, and countless people were paying attention to Xia Xingchen's news. Blackbird, you star pirates fought against Xia Xingchen, but he ran away. Flame Louis, you 5 against 1, but Xia Xingchen killed one of you? Hahaha, can you do it? If not, come and beg me, and I will take action against Xia Xingchen. Blackbird, and Flame Louis are all well-known king-level figures in the Chaos Star domain, and they have many friends. For a time, strong men from all over the Milky Way sent messages to inquire. In the past, although Xia Xingchen was very famous, he was still a junior and could not be seen by these strong men. However, after the news spread, many strong men began to pay attention to Xia Xingchen. Yes, this is true. There is a video on the internet. Blackbird had no way to refute it, so he simply admitted, Xia Xingchen is Roger's #1 disciple. He has comprehended the domain at a young age, and his mecha is very powerful and can perform jumps. Otherwise, how could he escape? Flame Louis has a bad temper. He was beaten up by Xia Xingchen and felt humiliated. When facing his friend's questions, he said, who is Xia Xingchen? The #1 wanted criminal that the entire galactic empire can't do anything about. We can't do it, but you can. Want to get Kinyun's reward? Dream on. The star pirate overlords all admitted that Xia Xingchen fought 1 against 5 and killed Katerina. In order to save their own face, they praised Xia Xingchen very highly, and the description was extremely exaggerated, just like a demon. The star pirate overlord can become a giant, and his combat power is very terrifying. Especially Blackbird, the End and others, they all started from scratch, from a small star pirate group, step by step, and finally became the star pirate overlord, with very strong practical experience. 4 pirate overlords and 5 S-class mecha masters joined forces. Even a general legendary mecha master would feel a headache. However, Xia Xingchen fought 1 against 5 and killed 1. The difficulty of this battle can be imagined. Xia Xingchen is so powerful. I heard that he is only in his 20s. He is so terrifying. No wonder he can become Roger's disciple. So, if we go to Xia Xingchen for trouble, it will be a death-seeking behavior. Hey, Xia Xingchen now has Roger as his backer. Even if we don't care about him, we have to care about Roger behind him. After the strong men from all over the Milky Way got the first-hand information from the pirate overlord, after analysis, they all gave up the plan to hunt down Xia Xingchen. Kinyun's reward is coveted. However, there is only one life. The strong men who can become S-class mecha masters are all smart people. Money can be earned slowly. But there are some people who cannot be offended. For example, Xia Xingchen is one of them. Freedom Space Station. Chen Tingting is processing documents at the office desk. Daughter. Chen Yuzhao, the leader of the Galaxy Freedom Army, came over with a happy look on his face. Father, what are you so happy about? Chen Tingting was surprised. Recently, because of the tense war with the Galactic Empire, Chen Yazhao was worried and hadn't smiled for a long time. Finally, there is news about Xia Xingchen. Incredible, really incredible. My daughter has a great eye. Chen Yazhao exclaimed. Oh. Freya came over immediately after hearing Xia Xingchen's name. Xia Xingchen is still in the Chaos Star domain and has become the disciple of the strongest man in the human race. Now, he has come out of retreat and is fighting 5 S-class mecha divisions 1 against 5 near the Gold and Silver Star. Not only did he escape safely, he also killed the Star Pirate Overlord, the daughter of space and time. Chen Yazhao's expression was very excited. I have never seen such a brave warrior. Chapter 1133 This is War. Father, Xia Xingchen is the best man I have ever seen. Chen Tingting's eyes sparkled. Father, will you allow me to find Xia Xingchen? Bring him back to the Galaxy Freedom Army? Although he is very good, but Xia Xingchen's identity is too complicated. Now is not the time. Chen Yazhao's face calmed down, and he looked at his daughter's face with sharp eyes. Father. Chen Tingting was disappointed. Freya, you take good care of the young lady. Chen Yazhao turned and left the room, leaving Chen Tingting angry and Freya at a loss. Beta Star has been besieged by the Star Pirate Army for nearly a year. Not only did the Star Pirate Army not withdraw, but it continued to increase its troops, besieging the entire Beta Star like an iron barrel. The difficulty of the battle on Beta Star was far beyond everyone's expectations. Due to the existence of the Dawn Fortress, the Star Pirates did not dare to act on a large scale, but it did not mean that they would not send small-scale troops, break up into small pieces, and land on Beta Star in batches. In fact, up to now, more than 4/5 of the area on Beta Star has been controlled by the Star Pirates. The war also shifted from outer space to the battle within the atmosphere. Boom. Edward's mecha was hit by a laser beam in midair and turned into a ball of fire. He could only abandon the plane and escape in advance. As soon as the parachute was deployed, it was riddled with holes by stray bullets and fell rapidly. Damn it. The Star Pirate Overlord, who was known for his noble and elegant appearance, had a dark face and dirty clothes. He cursed fiercely, and with a stroke of his right hand, a wind blade appeared and cut the rope of the parachute. He was wrapped in a whirlwind and fell rapidly towards the ground. Bang. Due to excessive mental power consumption, when Edward was 20 meters away from the ground, the whirlwind surrounding him dissipated, and he fell head first. His landing posture was definitely not graceful, but at least he survived. Pa. Edward spit out the sand, mixed with blood in his mouth fiercely, stood up and shook his head, and gray sand flowed out of his ears. Under his feet was a half-meter deep pit, burying half of his body in it. This was caused by the fall from the high altitude just now. If it were an ordinary person, his internal organs would have ruptured, and he would have died from the strong impact just now. However, as an S-class mecha master, Edward's physical fitness far exceeded that of ordinary people, and he could be called a monster. Even so, Edward's ears were full of buzzing sounds, as if countless bees were building nests inside. He turned his head and saw that 10 meters away from his body, the wreckage of Mecha was burning fiercely, and the fuel tank was still erupting with small explosions. My jackdaw. Edward was so distressed that he almost cried. For any mecha master, mechas are like lovers. What's more, Edward's jackdaw mecha has accompanied him through countless battles. However, the jackdaw mecha was destroyed on Beta Star. Edward was surrounded by a sea of fire and rising gunpowder smoke within 100 meters. He keenly discovered that in addition to the jackdaw mecha, there were 2 more mecha wreckages that fell from the sky to the ground. 2 mecha masters were struggling to climb out of the cockpit. Blair, Norton. You 2 bastards. Edward gritted his teeth and cursed fiercely. These 2 were captains under Blackbird. Both were S-class mecha masters, and their combat power was quite strong. It was these 2 who took advantage of the chaos to launch a sneak attack, which caused Edward's mecha to be destroyed. However, Edward was very brave. Before the mecha was destroyed, he released 2 air blades, accurately hitting the mechas of the 2 men, and forced them to be scapegoats. The injuries of the 2 S-class mecha masters were not serious. As soon as they climbed out of the cockpit, they saw Edward, who was covered in blood, walking towards them. They quickly took out the laser pistol for self-defense on their waists and half-crouched to make shooting movements. Whoosh, whoosh. Two sharp wind blades flew through the air and accurately cut the necks of the two S-class Mecha Masters. The faces of the two men were full of incredible astonishment, and a bloodline appeared on their necks, as if they were tied with a red rope. The next moment, the heads of the two men slid down from the smooth wounds on their necks. Two elite captains under Blackbird were killed. Edward stood up and looked up at the sky. The battle was still going on. Mechas kept flying by, making a roar that could rupture eardrums. There were flashes of light as violent as a sun in the sky. Laser beams and missiles splashed in the blue sky, as if a painter was painting an abstract painting. The dense explosions resounded throughout the universe, and fierce battles took place anywhere on Beta Star. Edward took a step, left the crash site, and walked towards the Dawn Fortress. As a result, he felt his steps were weak after just 10 steps. Looking back, he found a row of bloody footprints on the ground he had just passed. There was a tingling numbness in the lower back. Edward subconsciously touched it, and found a handful of blood. These damn bastards. Edward cursed fiercely, and pressed a button on his wrist. The inside of the Mecha combat suit immediately began to spit out hemostatic gel, temporarily sealing the wound, to prevent the injury from getting worse. While cursing, Edward dragged his seriously injured body, and tried to leave the crash site. Although the Star Pirates had no war experience, they were not stupid. They knew how to go to the crash site to clean up the battlefield, and kill the enemies who were not dead. With Edward's current physical condition, staying at the crash site was almost like seeking death. However, Edward had just walked less than 500 meters away from the crash site, when he suddenly felt a warning. A star skeleton beast armor with obvious Star Pirate style fell from the sky, and the rotary machine gun in the right hand began to spray hot bullets at a rate of 5,000 rounds per second. This was a B-level Mecha Master. In Edward's eyes, he was a kind of vulnerable fish. However, this fish posed a fatal threat to Edward at this moment. No matter how powerful a human is, it is impossible to compete with the weakest Mecha. The distance between the two is only 100 meters. At this distance, even Edward, who has the wind power and is known for his speed, is powerless to avoid it. Edward can only use up the last remaining mental power in his mind and cast a thin wind wall in front of him. This is a desperate fight. Da. Countless bullets poured madly on the wind wall, instantly tearing Edward's last defense apart. Just as Edward closed his eyes and waited for death, a gleaming arrow flew over and hit the head of the Star Beast armor accurately, destroying it instantly. At the same time, a Mecha flew over like a green lightning, and its huge body blocked Edward like a shield. Dozens of laser beams flew over and hit the Mecha mercilessly. The entire Mecha was blasted to pieces, and the armor plates all fell off, but the longbow covered with vine patterns on its back was intact, shining with mysterious brilliance. Green Death Mecha. Rom came to the rescue. Chapter 1134 Faith. Beta Star. Dawn Fortress floats in the air, with a huge shadow cast on the ground. In a newly built military base, people are busy transporting damaged mechas, carrying mecha parts for repair, carrying wounded soldiers, transporting medicines and ammunition. The continuous attacks of the Star Pirate Army have put every defender of Beta Star in a tense state. As the war escalates step by step, the situation of the defenders is not optimistic, and there is a clear shortage of manpower. Due to Xia's excellent manufacturing capabilities, there is no shortage of mechas and related parts. The mecha craftsmen of the Khan family are skilled in craftsmanship. The damaged mechas are transported to the mecha workshop, and will soon be repaired and sent to the front line again. Mechas can be repaired, and parts can be replaced. However, Mecha Masters must recuperate in the emergency room when they are injured. Therefore, many Mecha Masters are now fighting with injuries. Even Xingchen, who is a Star Princess, is now wearing a white coat and transformed into a battlefield nurse, sweating profusely to take care of the wounded. What? Edward was attacked, and his mecha was shot down. We don't know whether he is alive or dead. A member of the Blood Demon ran over and reported to Xingchen with an anxious face. During the siege of Beta Star, Xingchen became the spiritual leader. Although she did not understand military strategy, her subordinates would report to her about any problems. Upon hearing this bad news, Xingchen's pretty face turned pale. the Blood Demon Group, the Star Merchant Alliance, and the Mecha Craftsmen of the Kang family are all Xia Xingchen's direct descendants. Xingchen is not worried that these people will have any ulterior motives. However, the main combat force on Beta Star is not these people, but Edward's Jackdaw Star Pirates. The Jackdaw Star Pirates were beaten to a pulp by the end and the Teoti Mecha. After resting, they regained their combat power. If there were no Jackdaw Star Pirates, Xingchen would not be able to defend Beta Star for a week with these direct descendants of Xia Xingchen. The Jackdaw Star Pirates was a powerful star pirate group created and led by Edward himself. The pirates in the Star Pirates group were all unruly and only listened to Edward's orders. These people were not convinced of each other in private. If Edward had any problems, they would be undisciplined and mutiny immediately. Just when Xingchen was extremely anxious, a mecha with smoke and scars all over flew over from the sky and landed heavily in the yellow sand in front of the camp. Green Sorrow. It's Green Sorrow. Didn't he go out with Lord Edward? How could he be injured like this? A star pirate recognized that this was Rom's Green Sorrow mecha. His face suddenly changed, and he shouted loudly, "Medic!" Xingchen immediately took several of her mates and rushed to Green Sorrow first. In the cockpit, Edward crawled out of it covered in blood, very embarrassed. "Lord Edward." A maid immediately took out a cardiac stimulant and wanted to inject Edward. "Don't worry about me first. I'm fine. Save him first." Edward dragged Rom out of the cockpit with an anxious look on his face. The lower body of this brave orc warrior was already a bloody mess. Both legs were completely broken, and the wounds were charred. Just by looking at Rom's injuries, Xingchen could imagine what a brutal battle Edward and he had just experienced. Xingchen turned Rom's eyelids up and used an instrument to detect his physical condition. It might be the powerful vitality of the orcs that played a role. Although Rom's injuries were serious, his vitality was still tenacious. After injecting Rom with the cardiac stimulant, Xingchen asked the maid to take him to the floating ambulance and transport him to the wounded camp underground in the base. The wounded camp is located 100 meters underground and is cast with reinforced concrete. It is a solid fortification that can withstand nuclear bomb attacks. Inside the wounded camp are hundreds of emergency warehouses, which look like crystal coffins. The wounded inside are connected to breathing tubes and their bodies are soaked in green nutrient solution. This emergency chamber was made by Xia using the drawings in the storage space. The level of technology is more advanced than the most advanced emergency chambers of human beings today. As long as there is still a breath, as long as it is sent to the emergency chamber, life can be saved. Of course, it is just to save life. The wounded who are too seriously injured may sleep for a long time in the emergency chamber, for several years or even decades. With injuries like Rom, it is impossible for both legs to recover, and they can only be completely amputated. Edward's injuries are not serious, although Xingchen asked him to enter the emergency chamber to repair the damaged body tissues. However, Edward insisted on not doing so and wanted to leave the few remaining emergency chamber places to other mecha masters with more serious injuries. In desperation, Xingchen could only use some of the first aid knowledge she had learned to help Edward deal with the wound. After 20 minutes of emergency surgery, Xingchen found the armor fragments that cut into Edward's waist and used lasers to heal the wound. In order to keep his brain awake, Edward did not use anesthetics. After the operation, he was already sweating profusely and was so weak that he couldn't even stand up. "Thank you, Princess." Edward did not forget Xingchen's identity and wanted to thank her with noble etiquette, but he lost his balance and almost fell to the ground. "What princess?" Xingchen brushed away the hair stuck to her forehead. "Princess, can we leave Beta alive?" Edward suddenly asked. As the leader of the Star Pirates, Edward was always confident. However, facing the Star Pirate army, he was besieged for a whole year and failed to break through. Even the most determined people would inevitably have some doubts at this moment. Xingchen was stunned, then smiled and said, "Yes, of course. Xingchen is about to come back." Edward smiled bitterly and shook his head slowly. "It's not that I don't believe in the Marquis, but he is alone. He is facing thousands of Star Pirates. The power of one person is always limited. But I believe in him." Xingchen's beautiful eyes sparkled with dazzling brilliance. "Xingchen is my guardian knight. He once swore that no matter where I am in the universe, no matter how much danger I fall into, he will come to protect me. Save me. Lord Edward, do you believe me? Your Highness, of course I believe you. Edward said seriously. Just like you believe in me, please also believe in Xia Xingchen, whom I trust. Xingchen stood up and looked up at the starry sky with an innocent smile on her beautiful face. Xingchen, my guardian knight, please create a miracle again. Edward looked at Xingchen's longing expression and was slightly puzzled. Then he shook his head and sighed. There are always heroes in this world. Xia Xingchen is such a hero. Only he is worthy of Princess Crossing. Chapter 1135 The Dark Side of the Star. There is no day or night in the universe. The mirror-like decks of the space battleships emit the dazzling light of the stars. The Star Pirate army has been besieging Beta Star for a year, and there are still Star Pirates coming from afar to join the encirclement. With such a large number of troops, the demand for supplies is extremely alarming. Cargo ships are constantly flying from afar, bringing food, fresh water, ammunition, and various daily necessities. In order to protect the safety of these cargo ships and maintain their own lifeline, the Star Pirate Army has also sent out many mecha patrol teams. Under the brilliance of the stars, a mecha patrol team is escorting 3 cargo merchant ships and approaching the encirclement of Beta Star. There are 5 B-class mecha divisions and 1 A-class mecha division in this mecha team, a total of 6 mechas. 3 of the mechas are even equipped with plasma heavy artillery, and their combat effectiveness is obviously several times higher than that of other teams. From their combat power equipment, it can be seen that the cargo in these 3 cargo merchant ships is not trivial, and there must be no mistakes. During the flight, the leading A-class mecha master had been staring at the radar. Suddenly, he saw a flash of light on the radar. The light was so fast that it disappeared in a flash, making people think it was an illusion. The A-class mecha master was alarmed and immediately stopped the mecha team and the cargo merchant ship. At the same time, he took out a pair of punk glasses with a strange shape and put them on. He adjusted the dial on the frame of the glasses with both hands. After all the adjustments were completed, he looked in the direction where the radar had just reacted. The superpower of this A-class mecha master is vision, which is commonly known as clairvoyance. His optic nerve is extremely developed. With the naked eye, his strength is 10 times that of an ordinary person. And with the addition of this special telescope, his vision will be enhanced to a very terrifying level, even exceeding the detection equipment on the mecha. However, that direction is a dark nebula, and the scattered interstellar dust hinders him from seeing farther. Perspective. The mecha master did not give up. His eyes focused and activated his superpowers. His eyes finally penetrated the dust. In the nebula, he finally saw the figure of Mecha. It was a lone mecha, all cyan, with a dragon head on its head. Under the dark background of the universe, countless flashing points of light could be seen behind the mecha, forming a pair of giant wings that were 1,000 meters long. From the appearance of the mecha, there was no obvious external weapon device. Laser guns, Vulcan cannons, laser swords. None of these weapons were available. The mecha had nothing in its hands, and at first glance it looked harmless. What surprised the A-level mecha master with excellent eyesight was that this cyan mecha seemed to know that its whereabouts had been exposed, so it simply stopped hiding and emerged from the stardust and flew straight towards this side. A guy who is looking for death. A thought emerged in the mind of the A-level mecha master. The Star Pirates are bloodthirsty and will attack anyone who dares to provoke them. Even if it is just a misunderstanding, they don't care. Anyway, blood will make their name louder and make the enemy more afraid of them. Besides, the cargo ship they were escorting did contain something extremely important. However, the next moment, the cyan mecha disappeared from his sight. Am I dazzled? A second thought immediately flashed through the mind of the mecha. He was extremely confident in his eyesight, and no one had ever been able to escape his sight by driving a mecha. Unless it was an illusion. The universe is full of unknown mysteries. For example, some rays, some magnetic fields, and some pollen that can cause hallucinations can make people see hallucinations. In a flash, this A-level mecha master found that the cyan mecha that was tens of thousands of meters away just now was actually in front of him. It was still far away in the last second, and it was in front of him in the next second. It was like two separate pictures. The frames in the middle completely disappeared, and the whole process was blank, which made the mecha master feel unreal. The last picture. Strong light. Boundless strong light. A few minutes later, a message appeared on the light screen in front of Blackbird. The 87th patrol was attacked by an unknown attack, and was completely destroyed. Blackbird's brows twisted up all of a sudden. A feeling welled up in his heart. Xia Xingchen is here. After checking the last cargo ship, Xia Xingchen's expression was solemn. In addition to the common war supplies, there were also huge ice storages on the 3 cargo ships. There were thousands of white square boxes in the ice storage, and inside were syringes filled with green liquid. The composition of these green liquids was unknown, and Xia Xingchen even sent this unknown medicine to Xia. After analysis, Xia was unable to find a matching substance in the database. Shinran products. It seems to be something from the Shinran religion. A thought emerged in Xia Xingchen's mind, looking at Beta in the distance. Passing through countless warships, Beta's near-Earth orbit was not bursting with strong flashes, indicating that the battle was still very fierce. With the Dawn Fortress, Xia Xingchen was not afraid of the enemy's attack, but if the enemy attacked Beta in pieces, the role of the Dawn Fortress would be weakened to the limit. However, Xia Xingchen was still not worried. He believed that the Jackdaw Star Pirates, Blood Demon and others could withstand the pressure and defend these scattered enemies. Comparing the combat power, the Jackdaw Star Pirates and Blood Demon's mecha divisions are much stronger than the mob of the Star Pirates, both in terms of strength and mecha performance. And with Edward in charge, unless a strong man of Blackbird's level goes to battle in person. Otherwise, it is impossible to break through Beta Star. Xia Xingchen is worried about the celestial beings behind the siege of Beta Star. It is not the Star Pirates like Blackbird, but the celestial beings cult. These green injection needles have already shown that the conspiracy of the celestial beings cult has been quietly spreading. What does the God's Envoy want to do? Xia Xingchen pondered the question in his heart, but found nothing. The insidiousness and cunningness of the God's Envoy and the incredible technology of the celestial being far exceeded Xia Xingchen's imagination. Xia Xingchen could only draw one conclusion. The situation is not good, and it can't be delayed any longer. However, after a period of exploration in recent times, Xia Xingchen found that the encirclement outside Beta Star was more tightly defended than he had imagined. Even for him, it would be an impossible task to sneak in without anyone noticing. How could the pirates, a bunch of untrained rabble, who were under the command of several pirate overlords, form such a neat and tight military formation? There must be a senior general who was familiar with military law within this army of pirates. In fact, this person was a famous veteran of the Empire. Xia Xingchen looked up at the vast starry sky. The stars were shining, but behind them was endless darkness. Chapter 1136 Ambition and Loyalty. Since the enemy's encirclement can't find a loophole that allows me to sneak back to Beta Star, then I will charge in. Xia Xingchen thought, while dancing his hands on the console, and a burst of colorful flashes flashed in the cockpit. After confirming that the Qinglang mecha had no faults and all settings were operating normally, Xia Xingchen took a deep breath and flew towards the encirclement of the Star Pirate Army. Xia Xingchen chose the defense zone that was in charge of the Daughter of Time and Space, Catalina. Catalina's spatial ability was best at defense. Originally, Xia Xingchen could not pass through this defense zone. However, Catalina was dead, and there should be chaos in her Star Pirate group, so Xia Xingchen chose to pass through from this direction. The Qinglang mecha had not flown forward for less than 1,000 kilometers when the radar showed that another mecha patrol was rushing here. This mecha team should have received news that a team had just lost contact here, so they came to investigate. Xia Xingchen immediately controlled the Qinglang mecha and hid behind a desolate planet. He shut down the engine of the Qinglang mecha and kept all facilities silent except for the detection equipment. Observing secretly, a team of star pirates flew over from the distant starry sky. There were 10 of them in total, and they were arranged in a loose column in the starry sky. The electronic eyes on the head of the mecha flickered, and it was obvious that the detection equipment was turned on to continuously scan the surrounding area. This team of star pirates did not find any trace of Xia Xingchen. When they bypassed the planet and prepared to move forward, Xia Xingchen silently started the engine of the King Long Mecha and flew behind the group of star pirate mechas. Spiral flying drill. Xia Xingchen raised his finger, and several silver-white spiral drill heads condensed above the head of the King Long Mecha, and pointed his finger at the last star pirate mecha. The spiral flying drill is not an energy weapon, nor a thermal weapon, and the detection equipment cannot lock the existence of the spiral flying drill. Whoosh! A spiral flying drill flew out silently, and pierced the last star pirate mecha. Then, there was another one. The speed of the spiral drill was too fast. 3 of them destroyed the last 3 space pirate mechas. The space pirates then realized that there was an enemy behind them. Their reaction was very fast. They immediately turned on the mecha's optical brain, locked the King Long Mecha firmly on the light screen, and pressed the launch button, pouring out all the ammunition on the mecha. Explosions continued, and the starry sky around the King Long Mecha was illuminated by the flash like daylight. Xia Xingchen was driving the King Long Mecha, bathing in the hail of bullets, without moving at all. The ammunition, missiles, and laser beams fired by the space pirates' mechas could not break through the defense of the devouring star armor. Xia Xingchen pointed casually, and a silver flash flew out, destroying the enemy mecha in the distance. The battle lasted only 3 minutes, and the group of space pirates was completely wiped out. The flash disappeared, the explosion stopped, and the starry sky returned to its previous silence and darkness. Xia Xingchen drove the King Long Mecha to a piece of mecha wreckage floating in the universe, and used a life detector to scan and confirm that there was no survivor. The King Long Mecha turned around, and the wings of the sky behind it shook, and disappeared into the void. This was pure killing. Xia Xingchen did not like the feeling of killing people like mowing grass. However, he had to do it. Because this was a cruel war. In the battleship command room, the pointer of an old-fashioned wall clock pointed to 12 o'clock at midnight, and the brass pendulum swung slowly, and 12 low bells like death knells rang in the room. There is no day or night in the universe. If it weren't for the clock reminding him, Blackbird would not even know that it was already past bedtime. Blackbird's eyes have been fixed on the light screen, and it has been more than 6 hours so far. In just 6 hours, the light screen kept popping up news of the casualties of the Mecha division. More than 200 mechas were destroyed, and no Mecha division survived. In the year of besieging Beta Star, it was the first time that the Star Pirate army encountered such a huge casualties. Blackbird's ominous premonition became stronger. After determining the route of the casualty team, he was more certain that the enemy was not inside, but was attacking from the periphery of the encirclement. Is there anyone who wants to plunge into the fire pit of Beta Star at this moment? Blackbird knew the identity of this person with his toes. It must be Xia Xingchen. The key to the problem now is not who the enemy is, but what should be done. To deal with a powerful high-level Mecha division, sending a large army to besiege is the worst way. War is not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. The combat power of Mecha division is not simply accumulated. At least, Blackbird does not think that he can stop Xia Xingchen's pace by sending out 1,000 or even 10,000 D-level and C-level Mecha divisions. To deal with a high-level Mecha division, it is best to send a high-level Mecha division to deal with it. Among the Star Pirate army, the strongest combat power is Blackbird and several other Star Pirate overlords. However, because of the previous experience of Catalina, Blackbird now dare not face Xia Xingchen alone. A Mecha Master who has mastered the domain, even if he is only an A-level Mecha Master, cannot be speculated by common sense. Blackbird was extremely frightened. Blackbird called Flame Louie and End over, and the 3 of them discussed it. Flame Louie and End had both suffered at the hands of Xia Xingchen, and both had psychological trauma. Of course, they would never do it if they were asked to deal with Xia Xingchen. In the end, the result of the 3 people's discussion was to find Yundu together and let him find a solution from the God's Envoy. After all, it was the God's Envoy who came up with the idea of besieging Beta Star. They, the Star Pirate overlords, were just helping out. When Yundu heard the intention of Blackbird and the other 2, he immediately felt that it was very difficult to deal with, but he still contacted the God's Envoy. I know. The God's Envoy, wearing a black robe, sat cross-legged in front of a spherical statue and nodded slightly. I know. After turning off the communicator, the god's envoy remained motionless and continued to meditate. My god, I have found the inheritor of the ancient humans. But I need more powerful power. The god's envoy prayed bitterly in front of the statue. More powerful power. Servant, I can feel your ambition. A deep voice suddenly sounded in the extremely silent temple. The ball of light that once descended before Nicholas the Great suddenly appeared in front of the messenger of God. God. The messenger of God knelt down hurriedly, his body trembling. Ambition? I don't have that kind of thing. I only have loyalty. Forget it. Compared to your insignificant ambition, the inheritors of the ancient humans are the ones who need to be dealt with. The ball of light emitted waves. Please give me a more powerful chosen one. I know Xia Xingchen's strength. I will send the most powerful warriors to deal with him. I believe that it won't be long before you will receive my victory report. The messenger of God said. No. Just being the chosen one is not enough. The ball of light rejected the messenger of God's suggestion. You don't understand the ancient humans. They have unparalleled power. Even as great as I am, I can't compete with the ancient humans. The inheritors of the ancient humans must be strangled in the cradle. Chapter 1137, Resurrection Day. The envoy was stunned. The inheritor of the ancient mankind is so powerful. You don't give more powerful genetic medicine and the chosen one. Who should I send to deal with him? You go. The light ball said. The envoy was stunned. It's not that he didn't have the confidence to defeat Xia Xingchen. However, there are risks after all. God. It's not that I'm cowardly, but I still have a lot of things to do. I'm following your instructions to expand the Xia sect rapidly. It won't be long before you will gain countless faith power. I really can't leave. The envoy whispered. I naturally arranged someone to replace you. The light ball flickered slightly. Above the dome of the temple, a white beam of light appeared out of thin air, slowly falling from mid-air and shining on the ground. In the beam, a translucent round container appeared, filled with emerald green nutrient solution. The body of a young man was soaked in the liquid. Through the nutrient solution, you can see that this man has a muscular figure and a three-dimensional face like a marble sculpture. The red hair floating in the nutrient solution is extremely eye-catching. The envoy of God slightly raised his head and saw the face of the young man. His body was like being struck by lightning, and his golden vertical pupils showed surprise. Andre, Nicholas's adopted son, the regent of the Northern Empire. Prince Andre. Has he been resurrected? Yes. I have fulfilled my promise to Emperor Nicholas. Let this human man named Andre, carrying an unforgettable hatred, be reborn from hell. And he will also replace you and temporarily become the new envoy of God. Servant, if you can kill the inheritor of the ancient humans, I will restore your previous status. Otherwise, you will lose all your value. The voice of the light ball was extremely cold. The envoy of God, covered in a black robe, was shaking violently because of anger. However, facing the powerful celestial being, he could not resist and could only surrender. My god, as you wish. The envoy of God finally took off his black robe, revealing an ugly body covered with scales, cold and slippery like a snake, and reached out to throw the black robe on the ground. Boom. Andre in the cylindrical container suddenly punched and broke the container, and the green nutrient solution flowed everywhere. Andre's face was calm, without a trace of ripples. He looked at the ugly body of the messenger of God, and a trace of disgust flashed in his eyes. Swish. The body of the messenger of God was enveloped by the light column, and it was immediately decomposed into atoms and directly teleported to the vicinity of Beta Star in the Chaos Star region. This kind of ultra-long distance transmission across light years is still a mythical super technology for humans. But for the celestial beings, it is as easy as pie. In the evening of the next day, the Xia sect held a ceremony to join the sect. The messenger of God, wearing a black robe, sat high under the throne of the leader, looking at tens of thousands of believers crawling at his feet, with no expression of sadness or joy. No one knew that their messenger of God had been quietly replaced by someone else. Xia Xingchen. Andre looked up at the starry sky, clenched his hands tightly, and his eyes were full of hatred. I'm back from hell. At this time, Xia Xingchen was driving the Qinglang Mecha and resting on a desolate small satellite orbiting Beta Star. There were countless small detectors around the satellite, monitoring Xia Xingchen 360 degrees. Blackbird had completely controlled Xia Xingchen's whereabouts. In fact, Xia Xingchen had no intention of hiding his whereabouts. Xia Xingchen knew that he was completely exposed to the enemy's guns. As long as he was negligent for even a moment, hundreds of shipborne guns and thousands of mechas would immediately attack. So far, more than 400 star pirate mecha divisions have died at Xia Xingchen's hands. Excessive killing made Xia Xingchen's heart numb. So far, Xia Xingchen has not encountered even one S-class mecha division. The mecha divisions that came to intercept him were all low-level cannon fodder. In fact, these cannon fodders also effectively slowed down Xia Xingchen's speed. Is Blackbird sending his men to die? Xia Xingchen shook his head. He smelled the scent of conspiracy. Never mind. My purpose is not to kill people, but to enter Beta Star. Xia Xingchen looked down at Beta Star, which was so close. He could even see the outline of Dawn Fortress. After long-distance teleportation, the envoy arrived at the starfield near Beta Star with unparalleled precision, and appeared directly on Yondu's spaceship. Long-distance teleportation has great side effects. Even the envoy's strong body, which has been madly transformed by genetic drugs, has a precursor to genetic collapse. He was like a puddle of mud, limp on the ground, and vomited green liquid from his mouth. The whereabouts of the envoy were immediately discovered by the patrolling guards on the spaceship. The guards naturally could not recognize that this monster covered with scales like a snake was the envoy they respected. The envoy was immediately regarded as an invading alien race, and his limbs were locked in shackles and sent to Yondu. Yondu, don't you recognize me? After a short rest, the god's messenger recovered a little and stared at Yondu with a pair of golden vertical pupils. God's messenger. Lord God's messenger. You are Lord God's messenger. Yondu immediately felt a familiar strong sense of oppression. Facing the god's messenger, Yondu's knees softened, and he knelt down immediately. Bring my clothes here. By the way, call Blackbird and those useless star pirate overlords. The god's messenger said coldly. Yondu did it immediately. Blackbird, and Flame Louie immediately came to the god's messenger. Are you the god's messenger? The three people looked shocked. They didn't expect to meet the god's messenger in person one day. Wasn't he far away in Shineoan Star? How did he suddenly come to the Chaos Star region? Faster than the starship army of the Galactic Empire. The god's envoy saw what the three were thinking and said coldly, the celestial being is omnipotent. It's just a space, he can easily cross it. Even going upstream in the long river of time is not a difficult task. Easily cross the space, even go backward in the long river of time. It's simply the power of God. Blackbird and Flame Louie were extremely shocked. The end sneered in his heart. There are also celestial beings behind him. And in terms of technology alone, the mechanical celestial beings behind him are much more powerful than the soul celestial beings behind the god's envoy. Of course, the soul celestial beings are also stronger than the mechanical celestial beings. That is, their powerful soul ability can control people's hearts. Celestial beings are the code name for life that has evolved to a certain level. There are many races of celestial beings, and they also fight with each other. However, almost all celestial beings have a common enemy, that is, the ancient humans. The blood of the ancient humans flows in every human being. In order to prevent the ancient humans from reviving and re-evolving into celestial beings, many celestial beings have begun to stir. The Soul Clan and the Mechanical Clan are just the two that took action first. Chapter 1138 The Price of Power. In addition to the mechanical race and the soul race, the Zerg has also been stirring recently. However, due to the galactic barrier left by the ancient humans to protect the Milky Way, the celestial beings cannot come in their true bodies and can only send their agents to secretly plot conspiracies with the intention of destroying mankind. The envoy of God put on his black robe again and looked at the star pirate overlords who were respectful to him. The celestial beings are indeed omniscient. They can actually detect that I have a little evil intention. The envoy of God gritted his teeth and regretted in his heart, if I can catch Xia Xingchen, torture him to find out the secrets of the ancient humans and get the ancient human inheritance. Even if it is a celestial being, I will not put it in my eyes. However, Xia Xingchen must be caught. Only by catching him, I still have hope of turning the tables. The envoy of God is extremely dissatisfied with his current situation. He also notes that he has been regarded as an abandoned child by the celestial beings. However, as long as he can kill Xia Xingchen and show the celestial beings that he, the abandoned child, still has some use, then the celestial beings will definitely keep their promise and let him return to the high position of the envoy of God. Killing Xia Xingchen. It's impossible for me to do it alone. The envoy of God knew Xia Xingchen's information by heart. If he really had the confidence to capture and kill Xia Xingchen alone, he would have done it long ago and would not have waited until today. We must find a capable helper. The envoy of God's golden vertical pupils swept over Blackbird, and Flame Louis. End was made of steel, and there was not much left of his human body. Flame Louis was originally an alien race. Although he looked similar to humans, his genes were very different from those of humans. Only Blackbird was left. The envoy of God had a sneer on his lips and said to Blackbird, "Blackbird, on behalf of God, I will give you power. Let you be comparable to the legendary Mecha Master. Are you willing?" Blackbird was stunned, and a hint of joy flashed across his face, but his expression soon calmed down, and he whispered, "I, Blackbird, am willing to be loyal to God. But where does this power come from, and are there any side effects?" Blackbird has been roaming the starry sea for decades. What conspiracies and tricks has he not seen? He knew that there was no free lunch in the world, and everything had its price. To be able to become a legendary Mecha Master is not only a talent, but also luck, and it is a great opportunity that can only be encountered by chance. The God's messenger said lightly, and he could upgrade from an S-class Mecha Master to a legend? If it was really that simple, legendary Mecha Masters would not be so rare. Blackbird. The God's messenger realized that Blackbird was very cunning and not someone who was easily deceived. His voice suddenly became cold, and his golden vertical pupils stared at Blackbird, flashing a golden light full of oppression. But when Blackbird saw the golden vertical pupils of the God's messenger, he felt a shock in his brain, as if he was hit hard by a hammer. In front of him was only boundless darkness and two golden vertical pupils as big as planets. Seeing that Blackbird was not soft, the God's messenger immediately prepared to use his soul power to control Blackbird's thinking. Although the soul power of the God's messenger is infinitely powerful, it can only control Mecha Masters below S level. If the God's envoy could directly control the S-class Mecha Master, he would have controlled Kinyan and Nicholas, two dictators, and let them directly start a war and destroy humanity. There would be no such trouble. However, the God's envoy was abandoned by the celestial beings of the Soul Clan at this moment, and he was already at the end of his rope. The God's envoy could only make a desperate move and forcibly control Blackbird at the risk of backlash. A stream of emerald green blood flowed from the corner of the God's mouth, and his brain was backlashed and severely damaged. However, although Blackbird was known as a star pirate overlord, he was still inferior to the true kings, like Nicholas and Kinyan. Moreover, Blackbird's heart was still thirsty for power. In the end, Blackbird knelt down and finally surrendered to the God's envoy. "You are a teachable child." The God's envoy smiled and took out a syringe from his black robe. It was filled with a crystal clear liquid like emerald solution. It was the highest level gene medicine he prayed for from the celestial beings. Swish. The syringe pierced Blackbird's neck and all the gene medicine was injected. Blackbird screamed, then covered his neck with his hands, rolled on the ground, and kept wailing like a pig being slaughtered. Hearing Blackbird's screams, both End and Flame Louis were sweating profusely. They would rather keep their current status than use such a painful way to gain power. At the same time, they should be thankful that their bodies are far from human. The gene medicine held by the God's envoy was developed by the gods using human genes as a template. It can only transform human genes, and is ineffective against aliens. Otherwise, the God's envoy would not mind giving both of them an injection. For the God's envoy, the more powerful warriors the better. The Azure Dragon Mech quickly approached Beta Star, and was ready to enter the atmosphere. Behind the Azure Dragon Mech was a long road composed of mechas and warship wreckage, burning with flames, more dazzling than the Milky Way in the starry sky. Xia Xingchen killed them step by step. There were thousands of mechas and warships destroyed in Xia Xingchen's hands. Even Xia Xingchen felt a little tired at this moment. Not only physically, but also mentally. killing people, even though the other party is an unforgivable pirate. Even Xia Xingchen, who has a heart of stone, feels that killing is too heavy, and his hands are stained with blood. It's about to end. Xia Xingchen looked down at Beta Star. On the top of the Dawn Fortress, Kinjana had already opened her arms to welcome him. Hundreds of kilometers away, a medium-sized battleship flew over. The engine suddenly stopped, the tail flame extinguished, and it hovered above the orbit. This medium-sized battleship can carry hundreds of mechas, and has strong combat power. But it is still not enough to intercept Xia Xingchen. The battleship just stopped, the hatch opened, and 10 mechas flew out in a line. These mechas are star skeleton beast armors, with the logo of the Blackbird pirates on them, and they are the elite troops under Blackbird. Unlike the pirates, who like to make noise and shout loudly before the battle, this group of pirates is very silent, not saying a word, and even people think they are all corpses. The target is just ahead. Kill him. The leading star pirate waved his hand, and 10 mechas flew towards Xia Xingchen at high speed. So fast, Xia Xingchen's pupils shrank, and he immediately felt a strong sense of oppression. These star pirates are not ordinary fry, and their mental fluctuations are very strong. Get out of the way. He's mine. Just as Xia Xingchen was preparing to fight, the medium-sized battleship in front of him suddenly exploded, and turned into a burning fireball in the air. A dark mecha figure rushed out of the flames, and a voice roared violently. Blackbird. Xia Xingchen recognized at a glance that this mecha was Blackbird's Dark Emperor. Blackbird finally couldn't help it, and took action himself. However, what Xia Xingchen didn't expect was that when Blackbird took action, his target was not himself. Instead, he smashed all the 10 mechas in front of him that blocked his way. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1139, The Dark Emperor. Lord Blackbird. Why did you attack your own people? What happened? Why? Blackbird drove the Dark Emperor mecha to attack, and killed his 10 elite subordinates in one move, shocking countless people in the starry sky. Blackbird is famous for his brutality and bloodlust in the Chaos Star domain. Then, Blackbird's bloodlust is when facing the enemy. He has never attacked himself. In fact, Blackbird is an extremely protective person. Even if his subordinates make a big mistake, as long as they do not violate his bottom line, he will forgive them. None of the star pirate overlords in the Chaos Star domain has reached this height simply by bloodlust. However, Blackbird is now killing his own people, and killing 10 at a time. These people are all his right-hand men. Blackbird, what's going on? Why did he do this? Why did he suddenly go crazy? What happened? Thousands of eyes on countless warships watched this scene with their own eyes, and everyone felt terrified. The Dark Emperor stood proudly in the starry sky, emitting a dark aura, which submerged the starfield and completely enveloped it. This aura was filled with strong evil spirit and murderous intent. Blackbird had already lost his sanity, and turned into a killing machine controlled by the God's Messenger. For the God's Messenger, what does the death of a few people mean? The goal of the God's Messenger is to destroy the entire galaxy, countless planets, and trillions of humans. Blackbird. He actually exudes such a terrifying aura. Legend. This is the oppressive feeling that only legendary mecha masters can have. The power of the planet. Above the Dawn Fortress, Edward, the Blood Demon members, Kinjana and others looked up and clearly saw that there was a celestial body like a black hole in the sky. Everyone's eyes widened, and their faces were full of horror. Blackbird. You. Xia Xingchen's face changed slightly, and feeling the fluctuations of Blackbird's mental power, the hairs on his body stood up. Xia Xingchen, today is the day you die. Blackbird laughed strangely, and the muscles on his face twitched uncontrollably, twisting extremely and looking extremely hideous. His eyes rolled upwards, all white, and foam kept flowing from the corners of his mouth, but he was completely unaware at the moment. The genetic potion gave Blackbird terrifying power comparable to that of a legendary mecha master, but it also greatly overdrew his body, leaving his genes on the verge of collapse. If Blackbird was conscious, he might feel fear and helplessness. However, Blackbird was controlled by the mind of the messenger of God and had completely fallen into an extremely inflated and arrogant state. In Blackbird's perception, he has now turned into a giant who stands tall, and Xia Xingchen in front of him is just an insignificant little bug who can be crushed to death with just one finger. Lord Blackbird. Seeing the extremely ferocious look of Blackbird on the screen, the members of his star pirate group also found something wrong. These people did not know the conspiracy of the messenger of God, and he had completely controlled Blackbird. From several warships, several captains of the Blackbird star pirates flew out in Mechas, shouting, "Sir, there is something wrong with your condition. Sir, don't you feel anything unusual? Get out." Blackbird was very impatient, and the black hair on his body became more and more intense. The Dark Emperor waved his hand, and a black ball flew out and exploded in the center of several captains. Suddenly, blood was everywhere. The starry sky was dyed red with blood. All these captains were killed, and their bodies turned into blood. No one was spared. Crazy. It's really crazy. The members of the Blackbird pirates were all pale at this moment. Facing the crazy Blackbird, they felt extremely desperate and fearful. Xia Xingchen stood aside, frowning when he saw Blackbird slaughtering his men. The Dark Emperor's whole body was burning with black flames. With a wave of his hand, black balls of light flew out, and wherever they went, all living things were destroyed. Such power is really against the will of heaven. Legend is so terrifying. Xia Xingchen looked at the distant starry sky and was in a trance for a while. He felt as if he had returned to Shining Star and faced the Angel of Light Michael, who ranked second on the legend list. "Michael, he left me alive on purpose. Otherwise, I would have turned into light with the Xia Mecha." Xia Xingchen thought of his childish behavior before. He dared to face the legendary Mecha Master alone. He was lucky not to die. "I was not an opponent before. It doesn't mean that I'm still not an opponent now." Xia Xingchen clenched his fists and pushed the joystick in his hand down heavily. Not only did he not retreat, but he rushed towards the Dark Emperor. Stupid. Deep in the battleship group, the God's Envoy's pair of golden vertical pupils were paying attention to the battle situation. He felt very satisfied with Blackbird's combat power. No chosen one has ever been able to possess such a powerful force as Blackbird. In the final analysis, the materials in my hands are not good. I have never used an S-class mecha division as a template to create a chosen one. The God's Envoy thought secretly in his heart, and at the same time, his eyes looked around, looking at the star pirates who were concentrating on the battle. In the Galactic Empire, S-class mecha divisions are very rare, and each of them is a well-known and prestigious figure. It's a bit troublesome to move them. However, in the Chaos Star domain, there are many powerful and stupid S-class mecha divisions. Maybe I should calm down and use the Chaos Star domain as my base. Mass produce powerful chosen ones. As long as there are enough chosen ones, even the gods are not my opponents. The Envoy of God thought secretly in his heart, and with a turn of his eyes, a conspiracy had been quietly brewing. In fact, the Envoy of God had long anticipated that there would be such a day. Therefore, the Envoy of God secretly transported a large amount of genetic drugs to the Chaos Star domain through hidden poison. In this way, it came in handy. However, the top priority now. Let's kill Xia Xingchen first. Blackbird, don't hold back. Kill him. Once Xia Xingchen dies, I will naturally have a secret technique to torture his soul. Whatever secrets he has, they will not escape my control. The Envoy of God issued a killing order. Boom. Behind the Dark Emperor Mecha, two dark giant wings full of blood appeared. The wings flapped and kept beating. Waves of blood surged like substance, terrifying and captivating. Swish. With a clench of his hands, a huge black two-handed sword appeared in the hands of the Dark Emperor, and the whole body was condensed by black light. Xia Xingchen. I, Blackbird, am the Emperor and Overlord of the Chaos Star domain. Surrender to me quickly. I will spare your life. Otherwise. Blackbird spoke in a cold tone and pointed his sword towards Xia Xingchen. The black two-handed giant sword slashed horizontally, and 9 consecutive black sword energies attacked the Kinglang Mecha. Chapter 1140. The battle is in full swing. Facing Blackbird's attack, Xia Xingchen frowned, not daring to neglect, and immediately used the Wandering Sky skill. The Azure Dragon Mech turned into a shadow, disappeared from the spot, and appeared again 10,000 meters away in an instant. Teleport. The unique skill of the S-Class Mech Master. Xia Xingchen is now only one step away from being an S-Class Mech Master, and can barely use it, with extraordinary results. The speed of teleportation is a few points faster than my Wandering Sky skill. Xia Xingchen was also shocked. Xia Xingchen originally thought that the unique skill of the S-Class Mech Master, teleportation, increased the speed to the limit, so it has the same effect as teleportation. But now it is found that this is not entirely true. The S-Class Mech Master has a strong mental power and can more or less comprehend the rules of space. The teleportation skill is actually the Mech Master using the rules of space to directly teleport a part of the mech to the target location. Of course, the teleportation performed by the S-Class Mech Master is not strong enough. Once you become a legendary Mecha Master and have a detailed understanding of the rules of space, you should be able to perform a complete teleportation. Teleportation is the control of the laws of space. Leaping also uses the laws of space. Perhaps, a legendary Mecha Master, with sufficient mental strength, can also perform a leap. A bold idea emerged in Xia Xingchen's mind. The reason why a legendary Mecha Master can be named legend is that he naturally has the strength to make people remember him. Although Xia Xingchen is strong, he is not arrogant enough to think that he can compete head-on with a legendary Mecha Master. However, Xia Xingchen has a chance of winning against Blackbird, who uses external forces to boost his status to a legendary Mecha Master. Fire. Kill Xia Xingchen. Blackbird smiled coldly, drooling from the corner of his mouth, and ordered loudly. The Star Pirates woke up, as if from a dream, and the gunner immediately pressed the red button to attack. Boom boom boom. The entire starry sky was filled with roars. Countless warships opened fire at the same time, and energy beams intertwined, bombarding the area where Xia Xingchen was like a carpet, trying to kill him. The Azure Dragon Mecha was extremely flexible and shuttled freely in the artillery fire. However, the artillery fire was too fierce, and Xia Xingchen could not dodge in time. He was hit by an energy beam and turned into a ball of fire, falling downward. Hiss. Edward and others in the Dawn Fortress couldn't help but take a breath of cold air when they saw this scene. Xia Xingchen, I have become a legend, but you are just an A-level Mecha Master. I have thousands of troops under my command, but you only have a few cats and dogs. Why do you fight me? I can blow you into dregs with just a flick of my finger and the artillery fire of my men. Blackbird was extremely arrogant, laughing to the sky, his eyes full of contempt. But the Azure Dragon Mecha fell hundreds of meters, and the sky wings behind it shook and stabilized its body. The enemy didn't penetrate our armor. In the cockpit, after the optical computer detected that the Azure Dragon Mech was intact, a cold electronic sound rang out. The beam attack just now could not penetrate the devouring star armor outside the Azure Dragon Mech, but the shock caused by the explosion caused the Azure Dragon Mech to temporarily lose its balance. Xia Xingchen was not panicked at all. He grabbed the joystick with one hand and pressed a few buttons on the console with the other hand to stabilize the Azure Dragon Mech again. It's really difficult. Xia Xingchen frowned slightly and looked at Blackbird. But I must kill you in public today. Xia Xingchen stretched out his 5 fingers, and the bracelet on his wrist condensed his mental power and emitted a white light. In the right hand of the Azure Dragon Mech, a silver-white double helix spear appeared. Kill. Xia Xingchen roared and rushed towards the Dark Emperor Mech, unstoppable, without any hesitation. Xia Xingchen knew very well that, if he avoided the battle and just fled, another heavy artillery salvo from the Star Pirate fleet would come. Just because he could block it last time, it didn't mean he could block it next time. The Azure Dragon Mecha's defense was amazing, but it was not indestructible after all. For now, he could only bite the bullet and fight with Blackbird. Because of his concern for Blackbird, the Star Pirates were afraid to attack rashly. Come on. Blackbird smiled coldly. He asked his men to fire in order to force Xia Xingchen to fight him head-on. He was very confident in his own strength and believed that Xia Xingchen would never be his opponent. The Dark Emperor Mecha held the black light giant sword in both hands and chopped down the rapidly flying Azure Dragon Mecha heavily. The two mechas fought fiercely in the starry sky at a speed that could not be observed by the naked eye. Without the help of instruments, no one could see the fighting speed of the two mechas. Groups of mushroom clouds broke out in the starry sky, and hot flashes like supernova explosions continued to appear. The entire starfield was as bright as day at this moment. The fight between the two sides lasted for a full 10 minutes. A figure flew out backwards, and the thrusters behind the mecha sprayed red tail flames, barely stabilizing its body. It was the Dark Emperor. Its right arm had been torn off, and there was a big hole in its chest, obviously pierced by the double helix spear. Looking very embarrassed. In the cockpit, Blackbird's face was covered with blood, panting, and his face was full of disbelief. How is it possible? Why can't I beat you? Xia Xingchen, what kind of freak are you? The light dissipated, and the Azure Dragon Mecha stood in the starry sky, and the star-devouring armor was covered with fine cracks, like a spider web. There was also a deep scar on the left shoulder, which was obviously attacked by the black-light giant sword. The entire left arm was almost cut off. The scar on the left shoulder of the Azure Dragon Mecha flashed with black light. This black light seemed to be corrosive, hindering the star-devouring armor from self-repairing. Xia Xingchen was not feeling well either. His face was pale, and veins on his arms were bulging. Since driving the Azure Dragon Mech, Xia Xingchen had never fought such a fierce battle. The Azure Dragon Mech had never been damaged so badly. Even the battle with the legendary Mech Master, the God of Madness. The Azure Dragon Mech relied on its powerful recovery ability and Xia Xingchen's indomitable will to make the God of Madness admit defeat. However, Blackbird's power could actually hinder the self-repair of the Azure Dragon Mech. This power was too terrifying. Fortunately, Blackbird's power did not come from a legitimate source. It was not his own power. He was not skilled enough in using it. Otherwise, I really would not be his opponent. Xia Xingchen secretly rejoiced. After the fierce battle just now, Xia Xingchen had already understood Blackbird's strength clearly. As long as Blackbird was shrouded in Xia Xingchen's omniscience field and the mech was manipulated for close combat, Xia Xingchen had a 70% chance of killing Blackbird. Bang! After a short rest, the Azure Dragon Mech and the Dark Emperor Mech re-accelerated and collided. Xia Xingchen and Blackbird fought fiercely again. Chapter 1141 Becoming a Legend. Boom boom boom. The two mechas collided and fought fiercely. The energy was surging, and nuclear explosions continued to occur in the surrounding space, which was deafening. Hey! Xia Xingchen was surprised. He found that Blackbird's combat power had increased by more than 30% compared to before. Just now, Xia Xingchen was 70% sure that he could defeat Blackbird, but now it was only 50%. Omniscience Domain. Exploration. Xia Xingchen shouted in a low voice, using his domain power, to explore the reason why Blackbird's strength suddenly increased. In Xia Xingchen's perception, Blackbird's energy fluctuations were extremely huge, like a blazing star, emitting a fierce light that made people unable to look directly. The spiritual power was extremely pure, and there was no shackles at all. Blackbird, you are not controlled by the messenger of God. Xia Xingchen repeatedly explored 3 times and finally confirmed that Blackbird did not have the mental imprint and mental shackles left by the messenger of God. Even if there were, under such a fierce, star-like mental power collision, any mental power shackles would be burned to ashes. Ha ha ha. You finally found out. He is just a mere god's messenger, a conceited ugly monster, who actually wants to control me. But he doesn't know that I'm using him. This is a great opportunity for me to become a legend. Xia Xingchen, you are destined to be a stepping stone under my feet. Blackbird laughed wildly with a ferocious face. Puff. On the battleship behind, the god's messenger spat out a mouthful of blood, with an unbelievable look on his face. Blackbird actually deceived me. He is very ambitious, pretending to be controlled by me, but in fact he is borrowing my power to help him break through the legend. People's hearts are treacherous. People's hearts are treacherous. Blackbird, then you just wantonly killed your own men. It was not controlled by the god's messenger, but you did it voluntarily? Xia Xingchen frowned tightly, looking at Blackbird, his eyes full of anger and contempt. Xia Xingchen can understand that the god's messenger killed people. The god's messenger is no longer considered a human being. This is a fratricide. Xia Xingchen also has no burden in his heart when killing aliens. Those who are not of my race must have different hearts. This concept has been deeply embedded in Xia Xingchen and any human being. However, Blackbird voluntarily killed his compatriots for power, and the people he killed were all his right-hand men and his men who had fought with him through life and death. This move is extremely hateful. As long as I can become a legend, I can walk alone in the sea of stars. What's the meaning of those trash to me? Stepping stones. All of you are stepping stones, destined to be trampled into dust by me. Blackbird has gone crazy, selfish and despicable. Xia Xingchen couldn't help but curse. People like you don't deserve to be the overlord of the Star Pirates. There are bad guys among the Star Pirates, and there are also good people who are loyal and brave. You have failed them. Xia Xingchen, no matter how sharp your teeth are, you can't change the fact that you have become my stepping stone. I pretended to be controlled by the messenger of God so that he would feel at ease and inject the best gene medicine into my body. However, I need to fight a strong enemy to stabilize the changed genes and stabilize them in the realm of legend. Xia Xingchen, I recognize you. You are my strong enemy. Come on, help me achieve legend. Blackbird shouted, his eyes flashing scarlet light, his face full of crazy fighting spirit, a mere star pirate overlord. I don't care about it at all. Friendship, wealth, power, I don't care about it. I only need strength. Anyone who stands in my way must die. Under the gaze of countless people, Blackbird, as the Star Pirate Overlord, was so hysterical and did not hide his ambition at all. This situation is very rare. The Star Pirates who once worshipped and admired Blackbird felt chilled at this moment. Some people were extremely distressed and cursed. Blackbird, we are dedicated to you. I didn't expect that you are such a person. We are really blind. But Blackbird waved his hand, and the Dark Emperor released a blood-red flame, killing anyone who dared to question him. In front of the powerful force, Blackbird was completely lost. He was already caught up in the killing. Facing the pieces of mecha wreckage in the starry sky and the broken limbs of humans scattered everywhere, his face was full of satisfied smiles. Countless people saw this scene, and their hearts were filled with fear. Only the End, seeing such a scene of killing, quietly licked his lips, with envy in his eyes. Deep in the heart of the End, he longed to be like Blackbird, killing wantonly and bathing in human blood. However, failure made the End learn to keep a low profile. In front of Blackbird, the End hid his strength and the power of the Teoti armor. In front of the messenger of God, the End had to hide completely. Wait. When the time is right, I will kill you all. The End was full of the desire to kill. Blackbird, you are no longer worthy of being a human being. On the King Lang Mecha, Xia Xingchen clenched his fists and stared at the Dark Emperor's every move, with a hint of light red flashing in his black pupils. His contempt and hostility towards Blackbird had reached the extreme. Xia Xingchen had seen many executioners. With Nicholas's order, thousands of planets would be destroyed. Billions of humans would lose their lives. However, it was the first time that Xia Xingchen had seen an executioner like Blackbird who killed his own brother with his own hands. In order to become a legendary mecha master, Blackbird gave up the last part of himself as a human being and released his killing nature. Legendary mecha masters are a completely different species from ordinary humans. They are higher creatures that are superior to humans. It is natural for higher creatures to enslave and kill lower creatures. Blackbird was going crazy, driving the Dark Emperor, the Black Sword dancing like the wind, and attacking Xia Xingchen crazily. A black light was faintly emanating from Blackbird's body, and the light became more and more intense, as if he was covered by darkness. The attack speed of the Dark Emperor Mecha was also getting more and more terrifying, and the momentum was getting more and more fierce. Ha ha ha. I feel it. Legendary. I will soon become a legend. My flesh is roaring. My genes are roaring. Power. The huge power is already within reach. Blackbird laughed wildly. A terrible thing has happened. The efficacy of the gene potion spread, changing Blackbird's genes, reorganizing his gene sequence, and causing his body to undergo earth-shaking and amazing changes. The breath on Blackbird's body also suddenly became different, turning into a ball of darkness in the starry sky, as if a black hole appeared out of thin air. Countless people were shocked when they saw this scene. Blackbird, the overlord-level powerhouse who swept across the chaotic starfield, was about to break through and become a true legendary mecha master under the overlap of countless opportunities. Chapter 1142 Stepping Stone. Legendary Mecha Master. There are trillions of people in the galaxy, and everyone aspires to become a legend one day. The several levels of Mecha Masters, from D to S, are all represented by letter codes. Only the legendary level is different. Being able to become a legendary Mecha Master means being one of the very few people at the top of the pyramid, above the vast majority of humans. It also means that the deeds of this Mecha Master will not be forgotten, whether it is 100 years or 1,000 years, or even 10,000 years later, there will still be people who will remember and pass on his deeds. Good name or bad name. Legendary Mecha Masters have lost the qualifications to be forgotten. Even if I'm infamous for 10,000 years, I must be famous throughout the universe. Blackbird laughed wildly. This executioner with blood on his hands, and completely lost his humanity, still wants to be promoted here, and become a legend? A strong energy wave spread out with Blackbird as the center, and a thick darkness enveloped the starry sky for thousands of meters. Dark Domain. Blackbird was not only going to be promoted to a legendary Mecha Master, but at the same time, he also comprehended an extremely rare dark domain. Domain. Is this the domain? Darkness. Boundless darkness. Darkness that devours everything. Even light has nowhere to hide. Hahaha, I like it. Blackbird laughed crazily. Faced with such a result, Xia Xingchen simply couldn't accept it. Now Xia Xingchen's body was burning with anger. Anyone could step into the legend, but why was it Blackbird? Why at this moment? Relying on this unfinished domain, Xia Xingchen tied with a strong man like Blackbird, and even had the upper hand for a time. If Blackbird also comprehended the domain, then Xia Xingchen would not be a match for him. It's done. The power of the domain. It's really powerful. Xia Xingchen, I now understand why you are so powerful. I have also mastered the domain, and it's stronger than yours. Blackbird laughed loudly. I still have to thank you. If it weren't for you fighting with me, it would have brought me great pressure. I would never have been able to take this step. Blackbird had a crazy smile on his face all the time. He was so excited, and felt extremely comfortable. But in the eyes of others, his smile was extremely scary and ferocious. What should we do? A legendary Mecha Master who controls the domain. Blackbird actually became a legend. How is it possible? This is the fact. With Blackbird's madness and tyranny, the Chaos Star domain will be devastated. Who can stop him? Who can kill Blackbird? Stop this nightmare. Whether it was the Star Pirates or the people in the Dawn Fortress, everyone was begging, hoping for a miracle to happen. Hehe. There is no need to pray. There is no God in this world. Only power. Well, my power is greater than yours. I will shout for you. I, Blackbird Paladin, will become a legend today and control the darkness. I will definitely let the boundless darkness spread to every corner of the universe. Who dares to kill me? Who can kill me? Blackbird laughed, glanced at everyone, and his eyes were full of contempt. All living beings are ants. Blackbird only understood the exact meaning of this idiom at this moment. Countless people wailed, lamented, begged, roared, and even went crazy. Unfortunately, no one can change the fact that Blackbird has become a legend. Hahaha. Blackbird laughed, and the whites of his eyes began to return to normal, his pupils turned black, and the uncontrollable twisted muscles on his face returned to normal. Originally, his lymph nodes were swollen and covered with large and small lumps of flesh, but now they have also returned to normal. Blackbird was right about one thing. Legendary Mecha Masters are completely different from humans of the previous level. It's not about strength, but the difference at the genetic level. Humans have the blood of ancient humans flowing in their bodies, and they inherit the genes of ancient humans. They should be the darlings of the universe and the superiors above countless races. However, after the ancient humans were defeated, some celestial beings used some technology to bind shackles on human genes, trying to suppress the awakening power of humans. Because of this genetic shackle, the human civilization, which should have been brilliant and splendid, was suppressed and bound, and was restricted on Earth for thousands of years. By chance, it stepped into the sea of stars. Only by becoming a legendary Mecha Master can you break the shackles of genetic shackles. The genes become perfect. With perfect genes, the body also becomes perfect. Because of the gene potion, the genes in Blackbird's body are disordered and on the verge of collapse, and he looks like a madman. However, at this moment, the sequelae brought by the gene potion disappeared one by one. Blackbird exudes a strong aura, which is another ironclad evidence that he will become a legendary mecha master. Blackbird, I'm here to kill you. At this time, the Azure Dragon mecha burst out with an astonishing momentum and rushed over. Xia Xingchen's eyes were as cold and deep as the starry sky, staring coldly at Blackbird. The 6 spiral flying drills suspended above the head of the Azure Dragon mecha have now become 9. Transformed into 9 streams of light, stabbing towards the Dark Emperor. Hey, your mental power fluctuations suddenly become strong. As powerful as Blackbird, a powerful mecha master who immediately entered the legend. At a glance, he immediately found that something was wrong with Xia Xingchen. That's right, Blackbird. You used me as a stepping stone. But you didn't know that I also used you as a stepping stone. Xia Xingchen smiled coldly, exuding a confident aura. Thanks to the huge pressure and anger you brought to me. Finally, you forced out the potential in my body and improved my mental power to become an S-class mecha master. S-class. Blackbird was slightly stunned. He remembered very clearly that when he first met Xia Xingchen, his mental power fluctuations were very weak, and he should have just become an A-class mecha master. How long has it been? And Xia Xingchen's mental power level has increased by 10 levels. From an A-class mecha master to an S-class? This speed of cultivation is really terrifying. It's a pity that you are just an S-class mecha master. Blackbird shook his head and sneered. The gap with me is too big. After all, I'm a legend. You can break through the ranks and be promoted. So what? In my eyes, you are still like an insect. Enough. Xia Xingchen clenched his right hand, and a faint white light emanated from his whole body. He was full of confidence. I'm an S-class mecha master, and you are also S-class. We are at the same level. I can definitely kill you. Ridiculous. Blackbird sneered, and the Dark Emperor waved his hand, and a dark cloud covering the sky and the sun enveloped Xia Xingchen. This is the power of Blackbird's dark domain. Within this domain, Blackbird can transform his mental power into pure dark power. This power is highly corrosive and can destroy all vitality. If it is covered by this dark cloud, the Qinglang mecha will lose its biological activity and lose its proud self-repair ability. Chapter 1143 Blackbird Falls. Die. Xia Xingchen roared, and the wings of the sky behind the Azure Dragon mech flapped at an astonishing speed, more than 100 times the speed of sound, like a flash of lightning, flashing blue thunder light all over the body, dispelling the darkness, and illuminating the starry sky. The Azure Dragon mech flew up and directly tore the darkness in front of it. With undiminished power, it rushed towards Blackbird's Dark Emperor mech. Blackbird stepped into the legendary realm with one foot, and his reaction was as fast as lightning. He held the black light sword and slashed forward. A large area of darkness was splashed out like thick ink, blocking Xia Xingchen's way. Ding. Xia Xingchen did not dodge. The double helix spear in his right hand gathered strong white light and quickly became shorter and thicker. From a spear, it turned into the original drill. The drill rotated rapidly and hit the black light giant sword hard, sparks flying. The drill was the original form of Xia Xingchen's mental power. The double helix spear was just an evolution of the drill. In terms of power, the drill is more violent and terrifying. Ding ding ding. The Azure Dragon mech maintained a terrifying high speed, constantly changing its position in the air, and phantoms appeared one after another. The drill in its hand attacked the Dark Emperor mech fiercely. If it were an ordinary mech, it would maintain a terrifying speed of 100 times the speed of sound, constantly changing directions and attacking frantically. It would not last long, and it would exceed the load of the mech itself and disintegrate itself. However, Xia Xingchen's mech is not an ordinary mech, but one of the 4 great beast mechas of the orcs. The Azure Dragon mech has amazing recovery ability. With the support of the Azure Dragon Divine Tree, Xia Xingchen's fierce tactics, although it has great damage to the body, will soon repair itself. The speed of repair is much faster than the speed of loss. Boom. The right arm of the Azure Dragon mech turned into a huge drill with a diameter of 100 meters, which is 10 times larger than the mech. It flashed with black cold light and stirred up the powerful destructive energy. From top to bottom, it was like a mountain, crushing Blackbird. The Dark Emperor's mecha was severely damaged in the previous battle. His entire right arm was torn off. The black light giant sword was so huge that it could only be wielded with one hand. At this moment, he finally couldn't avoid it. He held the sword in one hand and blocked the terrifying drill attack. At the same time, the armor plate on his chest was opened, revealing the energy core, and a dark energy beam burst out, trying to penetrate the body of the Azure Dragon Mecha. Ding. With a loud bang, the black light giant sword finally couldn't hold on. Under the crazy attack of the drill, it exploded and turned into countless black mists, dissipating in the air. The armor plate of the Dark Emperor's only remaining hand was also peeled outward, revealing the sparkling circuit underneath, which looked extremely miserable. At the same time, the chest of the Dark Emperor's mecha was also pierced by a silver-white spiral drill head that suddenly flew over, and the whole thing exploded. Boom. The energy core was destroyed, causing the Dark Emperor's mecha to explode completely, leaving only half of its body, and the cockpit flew backwards. Impossible. Why am I no match for Xia Xingchen? I'm clearly a legend. Blackbird panicked and used his dark domain to turn the area around his body into darkness, trying to escape. However, Xia Xingchen obviously would not give Blackbird this opportunity. Blackbird had just become a legend, and although his realm had been reached, his strength was still unstable, and he was only at the peak of the S level. Although the dark domain was terrifying, Blackbird had not yet fully mastered it in a hurry. If Blackbird was allowed to escape, he would be able to cultivate himself and stabilize his realm to the level of a legend. Then, with Blackbird's vengeful character, when he came back, it would be Xia Xingchen's death. Thunder roar. Xia Xingchen roared, and the dragon head of the Azure Dragon Mecha suddenly opened, and the violent thunder energy was like a flood, sweeping towards the large area of darkness. The range of darkness was not small, but it was far less wide than the attack range of Thunder Roar. No. Blackbird's body was hidden in the black fog, swept by the violent energy flow, and uttered a last wail. He burned together with the Dark Emperor Mecha, and turned into dust. The Star Pirate Overlord Blackbird fell. Blackbird is dead. Blackbird became a legend, but he died in the hands of Xia Xingchen. How is it possible? Xia Xingchen is so terrifying. Countless people saw this scene with their own eyes. All of them had wide eyes and faces full of surprise. Blackbird is dead too. The end of the eyes was sad, and the rabbit died, and the fox mourned. Arsehole. Blackbird, this waste, just got killed by Xia Xingchen. The face of the messenger changed drastically, and he was furious. He punched the chair heavily. But a sinister smile flashed in the golden vertical pupils of the envoy of God, Xia Xingchen. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I really wouldn't have thought that you would be so strong beyond my expectations. But, the stronger you are, the more powerful the ancient human heritage in you is. You don't deserve this powerful heritage. I want to take it away from you. Only by obtaining this heritage can I gain the power to resist the gods. The envoy of God is very ambitious. After witnessing the supreme power of the gods, he realized how insignificant he was, but unfortunately he was powerless to resist. However, from Xia Xingchen, the envoy of God saw a glimmer of hope. Mr. Blackbird was killed by Xia Xingchen. Brothers, avenge him. Revenge. Whoever kills Xia Xingchen will be the new leader of the Blackbird Star Pirates. Attack. Attack Xia Xingchen. Destroy Beta Star together. Before Blackbird died, he was tyrannical and bloodthirsty, and killed many brothers who had been with him through thick and thin. Blackbird was unjust, but it doesn't mean that his brothers are disloyal. Although they had some complaints about Blackbird's actions, it would be unreasonable for them not to take action if Blackbird fell in front of these star pirates. The overwhelming star pirate warships swarmed in, and the main gun muzzles on the warships began to gather light and launched an attack on the area where Xia Xingchen was. Xia, leave it to you. Xia Xingchen was driving the King Lang Mecha, passing through the atmosphere and quickly landing on the ground of Beta Star. The energy detector showed that there was a high energy reaction behind him. He knew that the star pirates couldn't help but take action to avenge Blackbird, and he immediately roared. Meow meow meow. Got it. Black Cat Xia was in the main control room of the Dawn Fortress, dancing on the keyboard with a pair of cat claws, and finally hammered heavily on a red button. The Dawn Fortress began to gather light, and the muzzle of a giant cannon pointed to the sky, firing a beam of energy that penetrated the sky and the earth. After Xia precise calculations, the angle of this energy beam was very clever, which could hit the Star Pirate army to the greatest extent. Instantly, beautiful fireworks bloomed in the starry sky, and thousands of warships were hit and exploded, which was extremely dazzling. However, the strong men like the god's envoy all scattered and avoided the power of this cannon the moment the Dawn Fortress showed a high energy reaction. Even so, the god's envoy was scared enough, and his scaly face was full of horror. Chapter 1144 Star Domain Arc. Set sail. The Azure Dragon Mecha was like a meteor, streaking through the sky and landing steadily on the Dawn Fortress. Xingchen. Kinjana went up to her, opened her arms, and hugged Xia Xingchen tightly. Her beautiful face was full of concern. Jaina. Xia Xingchen looked at Kinjana's little face, couldn't help but hold her in his arms, and kissed her affectionately. Brother Xingchen. Edward followed Kinjana and came over with an embarrassed look on his face. Now is not the time for sentimental love. Although you killed Blackbird. But, Beta Star is still besieged. We have to find a way to break out. Xia Xingchen looked at Edward and the people behind him and smiled confidently. Don't worry, I'm already an S-level Mecha Master, and the authority of the Star Domain Arc can be upgraded by 1 level. It is enough to control the Star Domain Arc to leave and break out of the siege. Great. Edward couldn't help but slap his palms, his face showing joy. The others also breathed a sigh of relief. Jaina, wait for me to do business first. Xia Xingchen said softly with tenderness. Yeah. Kinjana was very obedient and nodded slightly. Jia, let's go to the main control room. Xia Xingchen turned around and said to the robot Jia. Jia nodded, led the way, left the Dawn Fortress, and entered the main control room of the Star Domain Arc. In the main control room, Xia Xingchen was once again in the dazzling sea of stars, but this time he was not panicked at all. A few minutes later, the main control room suddenly became bright, and Xia Xingchen found himself on the bridge of the starship. The Star Domain Arc is huge and the bridge is extremely wide. However, because the Star Domain Arc is very intelligent, it does not require hundreds of crew members to operate like other space aircraft carriers. Xia Xingchen's authority has been upgraded. In addition to the manufacturing module, Jia has also awakened the interstellar navigation module, and his intelligence has become higher. Xia Xingchen only needs to give orders, and the Star Domain Arc can automatically sail and fly to the designated target when it has sufficient energy. Advanced. It's really too advanced. Xia Xingchen had never driven such an intelligent and advanced spaceship before, and he was so excited. Xia Xingchen immediately ordered everyone to abandon everything on Beta Star, and even the Dawn Fortress started the self-destruction program, and all concentrated on the Star Domain Arc. It was the first time for everyone to enter the Star Domain Arc, and they were immediately shocked by this super-rare spaceship that far surpassed human technology. The most excited one was the Mecha craftsman of the Kang family. Kang Xiu held a wrench in his hand, touching here and there, and twisting some equipment when no one was paying attention. In the end, Kang Xiu accidentally triggered the automatic defense device, and the alarm sounded. If Xia Xingchen hadn't arrived in time, his life would have been in danger. As a Mecha craftsman, Xia Xingchen could understand Kang Xiu's itchy hands and the feeling of wanting to dismantle everything. However, the Star Domain Arc was too advanced. It was tens of thousands of years ahead of the technology of today's human beings. It was like a primitive man playing with a pistol, and there was a risk of accidental discharge at any time. Kang Xiu was scolded, and then he restrained himself a little. Jia reported, the Star Domain Arc is ready, and can take off at any time. Captain, please specify the destination. Xia Xingchen thought for a while, and discussed with Edward beside him, and set the first destination as his base camp Blue Star. Edward's Star Pirate fleet has been besieged on Beta Star for some time. Edward is very worried that when he is gone, Blue Star will be robbed by other Star Pirates. Moreover, Catalina and Blackbird were killed by Xia Xingchen one after another. The territories of these two Star Pirate overlords must be in chaos. Now is a good time to annex planets and expand the territory. Edward is going to return to Blue Star, and with the support of the weapons of the Star Merchant Alliance, he will immediately form a new Star Pirate fleet to seize the planets of other Star Pirate overlords. Xia Xingchen also agrees with Edward's plan. Brother Edward, the Chaos Star Domain has always been in chaos, occupied by 7 Star Pirate overlords. Now is a great time to control the entire Chaos Star Domain and put an end to the chaos. Blackbird and Catalina are dead, and the Star Pirate group has been destroyed. Flame Louis is an alien race, and he has been defeated by me, so he has a psychological shadow, and will definitely not dare to be our enemy. The remaining Star Pirate overlords are weak, and not worth worrying about. You are the most qualified to become the ruler of the Chaos Star Domain, Xia Xingchen said. Unify the Chaos Star Domain. Edward's eyes glowed with anticipation. This is Edward's dream. And now, with the help of Xia Xingchen, he can finally see the day when his dream comes true. Target, Azure Star. Xia Xingchen ordered. All equipment as normal. Star Domain Arc, set sail. Jia's voice echoed in the huge hull of the Star Domain Arc. Boom. Above the Beta Star, a huge spaceship 10,000 meters long revealed its hull, and the whole body of the hull exuded a silver-white light. Under the Redessin by Khan family Mecha craftsman and Xia Xingchen, the hull of the Star Domain Arc is silver and streamlined, full of futuristic technology. The engine of the spacecraft is not nuclear energy, nor even kinetic energy driven. There is no tail flame at the tail, and the whole body is wrapped in a hazy white light. Spaceship. There is a spaceship on Beta. So huge. Spacecraft carrier? Xia Xingchen actually hid a spacecraft carrier on this desolate planet? Who cares if it's a spacecraft carrier or not? My artillery is not vegetarian. No matter how big the ship is, it will be shot down. In the outer space of Beta, although the Star Pirate army was severely damaged, even Blackbird died. But because of the personal arrival of the God's Messenger, under the powerful mental control ability of the God's Messenger, the Star Pirates became more cohesive. After discovering the unusual movement above Beta, the Star Pirates responded immediately. Space carrier. The envoy was shocked again, his mouth corner raised, and he chuckled. Xia Xingchen. How many cards do you have left? Show them all. Let me see them. The more cards you have, the stronger they are. The more I can get from you. Fire. The envoy ordered through brainwaves. The main commanders on the Star Pirate ships, whose brains have been controlled by the envoy, heard his order and immediately opened fire at the Star Domain Arc. Energy raged in the starry sky, and space was distorted. After being trained by the envoy, the Star Pirates opened fire at the same time, and the firepower was more than 10 times stronger than before. If the Star Pirates had such fierce firepower at the beginning, the King Lang Mecha would have been hit and burned to debris in the first round of volleys. Countless energy beams cut through the universe and accurately hit the Star Domain Arc. However, a translucent energy protection layer appeared around the hull of the Star Domain Arc, absorbing all the energy beams. That's right. It's not defense, not rebound, but direct absorption. The original energy index of the Star Domain Arc was 70%. After the heavy fire, it actually rose by 2 percentage points to 72%. Chapter 1145, Senseless Killing. This is a psychic shield. The legendary psychic shield. An old man among the Khan family's mecha craftsmen exclaimed, "This kind of technology only exists in the records of ancient books. I didn't expect that there is such a super technology. The psychic shield can absorb the enemy's energy beams and convert them into the energy of the spacecraft for its own use. After all, the Khan family is an ancient family with a long history. There are many talented people in the family, and they have mastered some ancient and unknown secrets." Even Xia Xingchen didn't know what kind of technology the shield of the Star Domain Arc was, and what its origin was. However, this shield can complete energy conversion in a moment. With such a high technological content, it is impossible for humans to master it in a short time. It's a pity that the level of human technology is too low. Even the Lingju star may not have the ability to analyze the Star Domain Arc. Otherwise, human technology will have a big leap. The third big leap in human history. Xia Xingchen's heart was burning, and his palms clenched tightly. In human history, there have been two great technological leaps, which were later called Miracle Era by historians. The first leap was when humans developed generational spaceships, used nuclear fusion as energy, flew out of the Earth, and entered the era of interstellar exploration. The second leap was when the Qin royal family discovered the Lingju star, obtained the super technology of the jump engine from the ruins of the celestial beings, and established the human galactic empire. From then on, Historians called the following era the era of the Great Universe, also known as the era of galaxy domination. Xia Xingchen had a hunch that, if the technology on the star domain arc could be analyzed, not too much, just a little bit, humans would leap again, and enter a new era. The star domain arc was unscathed under the fierce artillery fire of the star pirate army. The god's messenger was stunned and dumbfounded. What kind of technology is this? Celestial technology. That's right, it must be the technology of ancient humans. Powerful, extremely powerful. The god's messenger licked his lips with his scarlet long tongue, and his heart was both happy and worried. What made the god's messenger happy was that the power displayed by the star domain arc had the potential to compete with the celestial beings behind him. What he was worried about was that, if the power of the star domain arc was too strong, even he would not be Xia Xingchen's opponent. Everyone, listen, fire. Stop that spaceship. The messenger of God shouted at the top of his lungs. He knew very well that this was the only chance to stop the star domain arc. If the star domain arc set sail, left Beta Star, and sailed into the vast sea of stars, no matter how many troops there were, they would be helpless against it. The star pirates woke up from their dreams and pressed the red fire button again. The scorching laser beams were colorful. Under the black, lead background of the universe, with the star domain arc as a center, a large vortex of colors was blurred. No matter how strong the attack was, it could not shake the hull of the star domain arc. Before the energy beam hit the body of the star domain arc, it was absorbed, refracted, and bounced off by the protective shield. The scattered energy slaughter turned into turbulence, filling the entire universe with a hot breath. Xia Xingchen, wearing the silver-gray uniform of a major general of the Empire, sat in the command position of the white bridge of the star domain arc, his eyes projected to the light screen in front of his head, watching the strong dance of light and heat outside the star domain arc, with a smile on his lips. According to the customs of the Imperial Army, soldiers with a rank below general are not qualified to become commanders of large interstellar battleships, unless there are special circumstances. Moreover, for a super large space aircraft carrier like the star domain arc, the rank must be at least lieutenant general or above. Although Xia Xingchen has been expelled from the army by the imperial military, he has no intention of breaking this rule. Princess Xingchen is the legal heir to the empire, and she has just promoted Xia Xingchen to the rank of major general of the empire. Of course, Xia Xingchen doesn't care about this superficial rank. He is not a vain person. However, among Xia Xingchen's many subordinates, some people care a lot about whether they follow a colonel or a general. At Xingchen's insistence, Xia Xingchen put on this handsome and straight general uniform. General, the enemy can't break through our defense. Zhu Moyi also put on a military uniform, with the captain's shoulder badge on his shoulder, staring at the screen with his eyes fixed, and shouted in surprise. Oh my god. This spaceship is so powerful. Although the pirates are a mob, their starships and mechas are all top quality products produced by the Tang Dynasty group. Such firepower can't penetrate the defense. After all, it's Shinran technology. I really want to take it apart and see. The mecha craftsmen of the Kang family were also amazed. The enemy can't hurt us, but there is a constant rumbling outside, which is very annoying. Boss, do you want to fight back? Li Huamei also changed into a straight female military uniform. She was tall, a head taller than ordinary men. The military uniform on the ship looked heroic and very eye-catching. Because she had no military status, the epaulets were blank. Fight back. Teach these bastards a lesson. Tai Zion shouted with his teeth bared. He was injured in the previous battle, with a bandage on his forehead, and his expression was extremely excited. Yes. Fight back. In front of the powerful star arc, the enemy is a group of vulnerable chickens and pottery dogs. The people of the Bloody Mary Star Pirates shouted excitedly at this moment. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Xia Xingchen, waiting for his order. Xia Xingchen was silent for a long time, slowly shook his head, sighed and said, "The enemy is certainly not our opponent. But I don't want to see this kind of meaningless killing anymore. Star Pirates are also human beings, our compatriots. Let's go. Leave this starfield." Yes. No one complained. No one would question Xia Xingchen's order, and everyone shouted loudly at the same time. Swish. The huge hull of the star arc suddenly twisted, turned into a silver light, and disappeared into the universe out of thin air. This is not a jump. The first prerequisite for the jump is that there must be no strong energy interference in the 100,000 kilometers of space ahead, otherwise the jump may fail. Strong energy includes celestial bodies such as stars and large starships. The star arc ignored the thousands of starships in front and disappeared directly. Moreover, the spacecraft did not enter the subspace, but the dark space deeper than the subspace, in which it moved at twice the speed of light. This is a full jump, that is higher than the jump. Seeing the star arc disappear in front of him, the god's messenger was completely dumbfounded. He felt a sense of loss, as if the duck in his hand had flown away. Stop him! Stop him! The god's messenger roared. However, the star pirates are a group of rabble after all. No matter how many people there are, or how many warships there are, they cannot pose any threat to the star arc. The Imperial Expeditionary Force. The Imperial Expeditionary Force. Why haven't they arrived yet? The god's messenger suddenly remembered that he had arranged for the Imperial Expeditionary Force to send the 5th Fleet, a total of tens of thousands of warships, to encircle and suppress Beta Star. In terms of time, the Imperial Expeditionary Force should have arrived in this starfield long ago. Why is there not even a ghost until now? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1146, The Fall of Azure Star. The envoy calmed down and immediately used the communicator to make a video call with Admiral Tiz of the 5th Fleet. Who are you? General Tiz was a middle-aged man with a resolute face and graying temples. He wore a neat Imperial general uniform and was serious. Asshole. The envoy was furious. You don't even recognize me? I'm the envoy of God. Haha, pretending to be the envoy of God. General Tiz sneered. The envoy of God is obviously on Cheyenne Star, but this video signal is sent from the Chaos Star domain. If you want to pretend to be the envoy of God, you should use your brain. The envoy of God remembered that his identity had been replaced by the resurrected Andre. Power, status, wealth, everything that once belonged to him has become someone else's. Even his identity. The current envoy of God is a transparent person without an identity, who can only live under the shadow of Andre. Because of a word from the celestial being, the envoy of God lost everything. And now, Xia Xingchen is driving the Star Domain arc, and is preparing to escape from the Chaos Star Domain. The envoy of God did not complete the task assigned by the celestial being. Then the god's envoy is nothing more than a pile of useless garbage in the eyes of the heavenly man. He has no way to get back what belongs to him. Thinking of this, the god's envoy panicked. Imposter. I don't know what your reasons are, and I don't want to know. In short, you have committed a heinous crime by impersonating the honorable god's envoy. I advise you to go to the police station on the planet and surrender yourself and confess your crime. I still have important military affairs to deal with, and I don't have time to deal with you. General Tiz said, and was about to cut off the communication. Important military affairs? Isn't the destination of your 5th Expeditionary Fleet Beta in the Chaos Starfield? The god's envoy said anxiously. General Tiz frowned. You, an imposter, actually know such military secrets. Damn, which bastard leaked it out? And my communication address is also encrypted. How could you contact me? There was a moment of silence. General Tiz slightly tilted his body, revealing the huge porthole of the battleship behind him. Outside the window was a desolate and lonely starry sky, and the stars in the distance emitted a weak light. The density of stars and the brightness of stars in the Chaos Star region are obviously much higher than this starry sky. General Tiz lowered his voice. As you can see, our unit has received the latest order from the god's envoy and has changed direction and left the Chaos Star region. Our target is Longton Star, an unknown small planet in the Chang'an Star region. It is said that the remnants of Xia Xingchen are hidden there. TSK. The picture suddenly disconnected. The light screen became pitch black, reflecting the ugly face of the god's envoy. The expeditionary force has changed its target. In other words, I have lost all support. In the Chaos Star region, I can only use my own strength to fight against the powerful Star region arc controlled by Xia Xingchen. The god's envoy seemed to have been drained of his body and sat on the ground dejectedly. He finally deeply experienced an emotion that he had long forgotten: despair. Chaos Star region, Azure Star. Swish. A ray of light flashed, and the Star region arc appeared near the Azure Star. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, the Star region arc remained invisible and floated in the starry sky without anyone noticing. So fast. We've reached Azure Star so soon. Everyone in the Jackdaw Star Pirates was stunned when they saw the familiar planet outside the window. It's 3 times faster than my Jackdaw starship. Edward was shocked. As we all know, the speed of the Jackdaw starship is second to none in the entire galaxy. But the speed of the Star Domain arc is much faster than that of the Jackdaw. This is not a small problem such as the hull structure, engine output power, and jump density. It is an absolute crushing of the technological level. It's like comparing the speed of horse racing and maglev trains. The two are not at the same level at all. Moreover, Edward knew that the Star Domain arc did not show the fastest speed. Azure Star. I'm finally back. Edward's eyes were burning. To be honest, when he was trapped on Beta Star, he felt despair more than once, thinking that he could not return to his own planet. Edward immediately used the internal communication code of the Jackdaw to contact Azure Star. The result disappointed Edward. There was no response from Azure Star. Edward learned from a passing merchant ship that Azure was attacked by a pirate fleet a few months ago. The garrison of the Jackdaw Pirates was defeated and expelled from Azure, completely losing control. At this moment, the ruler of Azure is a 5-star pirate group called Hunters, and the leader is named Geralt. Geralt. Edward's face flushed, and he was extremely angry. I know this guy. He was once extremely poor, and was hunted by his enemies. It was me who helped him reconcile with his enemies. Unexpectedly, he turned his kindness into hatred. While I was not on Azure, he took advantage of my misfortune, and occupied my planet. This ungrateful guy. Captain. Let's go back together, and take back Azure. The pirates of the Jackdaw Pirates were all furious when they heard the news. Pirates are all extremely vicious. Morality is not as valuable to them as a croissant. However, there is one thing that most pirates value: morality. Every place has its own rules. Pirates who don't speak moral principles will also be looked down upon by other pirates. Brother Edward, you are trapped on Beta because of me. I will help you take back the Azure Star. Xia Xingchen knew that the Azure Star had changed hands and felt sorry. No need. Edward shook his head. It's my own planet. I took it back myself. I can't afford to ask you for help. Okay. Seeing Edward's determination, Xia Xingchen said nothing more. Originally, Xia Xingchen planned to let the Star Domain arc quietly land on the Azure Star, and Edward led the Jackdaw Star Pirates to surprise the Hunters. However, Xia took the initiative to stand up and blocked Xia Xingchen's decision. It's better for the Star Domain arc not to get close to large planets with life, let alone rashly land on the planet. Xia said. Why? Xia Xingchen looked confused. Because the Star Arc is conscious. Xia explained. All things have spirits. The creations of ancient humans all have their own spirituality. Over the years, the spirituality of the Star Arc has faded, but its self-consciousness is still dormant. The spaceship has its own consciousness. Xia Xingchen nodded, not quite understanding. But, can't a conscious spaceship land on a planet? Not all planets, but large ones, especially planets that have given birth to highly intelligent creatures. Because this kind of planet also has its own consciousness. I think you have heard of the Xia theory. Xia said in a deep voice. My name, Xia, is named after this ancient theory. Chapter 1147 Planetary Consciousness. Xia theory? Xia Xingchen actually learned this theory when he was in Bishan High School on Manastar, but it was too long ago, and he can't remember it clearly now. Xia Xingchen's mental power has now broken through level 50, and his brain cells are active and full of vitality. The function of the hippocampus responsible for memory has been further improved. Xia Xingchen not only has the ability to remember everything he has seen, but also recalls things that have long been forgotten. The Xia theory was proposed by a British scientist James Lovelock in the 1960s of the Earth era, also known as the Xia hypothesis. One of the core parts of this theory is that the planet is a giant life system and even has its own consciousness. The name of this consciousness is called Xia. The Xia theory has not been confirmed until now. However, among the most cutting-edge scientists, many people believe that planets also have self-awareness. If a planet senses that it is in danger, it will also react, such as triggering natural disasters such as tsunamis and earthquakes. In the process of human interstellar colonization, the human starship army is not invincible. Especially when conquering some planets with intelligent creatures, the army often encounters natural disasters. This is why, in the era of the universe, the military forces of mankind crushed many alien races, but did not exterminate them, but only colonized and plundered resources. Xia theory. Xia Xingchen suddenly remembered that he landed on the demon star with the genius teenagers. Not long after, the climate of the planet began to deteriorate, storms occurred frequently, and finally even the entire planet erupted volcanically, destroying the entire civilization of the demon race. Maybe, it was the consciousness of the demon star that discovered the huge threat of the insect god that could threaten its survival, so it caused a natural disaster. Sure enough, the planets where intelligent life was born all have self-awareness. Xia Xingchen nodded and agreed with Xia's statement. The star domain arc has self-awareness, and it is a huge threatening alien to the planetary consciousness. If the star domain arc lands on a planet, it may cause an attack from the planetary consciousness. Of course, the star domain arc will certainly not take ordinary planetary consciousness seriously. When Xia Xingchen gradually increases his authority and gains control of the star arc, he can use the star arc's star destroyer cannon to smash a planet with one shot. All planetary consciousness will disappear. However, the Azure star was once the home planet of the mermaids, and once gave birth to a brilliant civilization, with a technological level that is even higher than that of today's humans. The planetary consciousness of the Azure star is extraordinary. When the star arc approached the planet, Xia felt a strong and vast hostility coming from the planet. Therefore, Xia reminded Xia Xingchen that before the star arc had restored all its functions, it was best not to approach planets like the Azure star. So, even if I control the star arc now, it is impossible to go to Xianyu and start to save Princess Yu. Xia Xingchen was stunned when he heard Xia's explanation. You can say that, as the capital of the empire, Xianyu star has a very strong planetary consciousness. The Azure star has been silent and decayed for tens of thousands of years, and the star arc cannot compete with it now. Not to mention that the human race is still thriving, and the planetary consciousness is even more terrifying. Xia explained. Sure enough, things are not that simple. In the end, I still have to rely on my own strength. Xia Xingchen clenched his hands tightly. In fact, he had already expected this result. Although the star arc is powerful, Xia Xingchen's enemy is the huge galactic empire. He is an enemy of the entire Milky Way. With only one star arc, you want to overthrow the 1000-year hegemony of the human empire? The Shinran are powerful in technology, smart and wise, and have never had such a naive idea. They all sent their own agents to try all kinds of ways to infiltrate and corrupt the foundation of the galactic empire bit by bit. Because this method is the best way to destroy the human empire. For now, Xia Xingchen still has to improve his strength as soon as possible and further obtain the authority of the star arc. Wait for Xia Xingchen to officially enter the legend. He must be able to fly to Xianyu star in broad daylight by driving the star domain arc. Use the giant ship and cannon to smash the last cornerstone of the crumbling and corrupt empire, change the dynasty, and establish a truly prosperous human country. In the final analysis, it is still necessary to be strong. I want to become a legend. Xia Xingchen's eyes were burning with fighting spirit. Become a legend. If the previous Xia Xingchen made such an arrogant oath, many people would definitely laugh at him and say that this is an unrealistic fantasy. However, this is a different time. Xia Xingchen's master is the strongest human being, the star pirate King Roger. Xia Xingchen has realized the existence of the domain and understands the basic application of the omniscient domain. Xia Xingchen has obtained the inheritance of ancient humans and gained control of the star domain arc. There is also the mysterious crystal pyramid in Xia Xingchen's mind. Carlos said that this crystal pyramid is the source of the Manco people's faith. However, why the Manco people worship this crystal pyramid, even Carlos, a quasi-celestial being, does not know. Carlos is considered a celestial being of the mechanical race, and it took a long time for his consciousness to awaken. His database records countless secrets of the galaxy. However, even Carlos does not know what the crystal pyramid is. In addition to these external factors, there is also the most important point. The reason why Xia Xingchen is confident in everything he does is because behind Xia Xingchen, there are Xinjana, Edward, Kang Xiu. There are his women, friends, comrades, and brothers who always support him. Xia Xingchen is not fighting alone. Edward drove the jackdaw mech that Xia Xingchen personally repaired and debugged, and led the pirates of the Jackdaw Star Pirates to raid the Azure Star. Xia Xingchen hugged Xinjana's white shoulders, stood on the deck of the Star Domain Ark, and watched their backs turn into black dots and disappear in the direction of the Azure Star. Xingchen. Xinjana buried her little face in Xia Xingchen's arms and whispered, "When can we go back? I'm worried about my sister. Jaina, soon. I promise, we will be able to return to Shianyu and Star soon." Xia Xingchen looked at the deep and vast starry sky and whispered. After sending Xinjana to the room to rest, Xia Xingchen didn't stay for long. He said goodnight and came to the meditation room. The meditation room on the Star Domain Ark was designed according to Xia Xingchen's plan. It was just built and put into use for the first time. From one RUI, Xia Xingchen learned that mental power is also a kind of energy, which exists widely in the universe. And this kind of energy will be enriched by gravity. The greater the gravity of the planet, the more abundant the mental energy. Therefore, some wealthy S-class mecha masters will build gravity cabins in the universe's meditation rooms to improve the meditation efficiency to the best state. The meditation room on the Star Domain Ark has also been equipped with a gravity system. Chapter 1148 Superpower Evolution. The gravity device in the meditation room can be adjusted to 10 times the standard gravity as needed. Of course, in Jia's database, a gravity cabin with 100 times the standard gravity can be created. But human flesh and blood cannot withstand 100 times the gravity. Even if it is 10 times the gravity, with Xia Xingchen's current physical fitness, he can only maintain a meditative state of sitting cross-legged in the gravity cabin, and has no extra strength to move. Xia Xingchen sat cross-legged in the gravity cabin, and turned on the gravity switch. Click. In an instant, Xia Xingchen felt the heaviness of a mountain on his back. His bones were creaking, and the sound of frying beans burst out. 10 times the gravity. Xia Xingchen needs to bear 10 times the force of his body weight, and his body will be torn apart by the pressure. The air was squeezed out of his lungs, and the dizziness caused by the strong suffocation made Xia Xingchen almost faint. Mental power. Xia Xingchen straightened his neck with difficulty, and the mental power spread out from his brain. His mind was highly concentrated, forming a starry sky barrier around his body, which was able to withstand the huge gravity. The road of cultivation is full of rugged thorns. Only those with strong wills who face difficulties head-on have the opportunity to stand at the top of the pyramid. Xia Xingchen's qualifications are ordinary, but he has seen countless talented people. He feels that he is not inferior to those geniuses. Hard work can make up for the lack of talent. The gravity cabin formed a special gravity field in the starry sky, which concentrated the scattered spiritual energy in the starry sky and gathered it in the gravity cabin. Every pore in Xia Xingchen's body stretched out, greedily absorbing energy. His mental power has just broken through the 50th level, and his realm is unstable. He needs a lot of energy to make up for the deficit in his body to stabilize his realm. Xia Xingchen gritted his teeth and persisted in the gravity cabin for 10 minutes. Finally, he was exhausted and sweating all over. With the last strength, he turned off the 10 times gravity. Such high intensity cultivation must be gradual. Xia Xingchen was not in a hurry, and his mentality was stable. He knew that it was impossible to eat a fat man in one bite. Then, Xia Xingchen began to meditate normally, on the one hand, to rest and let his body recover. On the other hand, it is to observe oneself and gaze at the evolving spiritual power planet in the mind. Spiritual power level 50 is a huge step. After becoming an S-level Mecha Master, many Mecha Masters will have a change in their superpowers due to the substantial improvement of their mental power and the understanding of the laws of the universe. For flame superpowers, the color of the flame will change, and the temperature will be higher. Wind superpowers, originally just acceleration, can use wind blade attacks after reaching S level. Other superpowers will change and increase their power. But my mental power has not changed at all. Xia Xingchen frowned slightly, feeling a little distressed. At this time, Xia Xingchen suddenly discovered that the spiritual power planet in his mind had actually changed and suddenly split from the middle and split into two halves. One of the spiritual power planets slowly floated out from the top of his head and turned into a translucent human figure standing in front of Xia Xingchen. The figure and face of this human figure are exactly the same as Xia Xingchen, but the whole body is translucent, faintly flashing white light, which is condensed by spiritual power. Xia Xingchen was stunned for a long time before he realized that the person standing in front of him was a spiritual clone. A spiritual clone the same size as a real person. Xia Xingchen has mastered the skill of spiritual clone for a long time. From the earliest Dragon Knight system, the spiritual clone controlled the floating cannon, to the later spiritual clone controlling the spiral flying drill. Xia Xingchen deeply felt that the spiritual clone was an extremely practical skill. However, Xia Xingchen's spiritual clone also has a great disadvantage. That is, the objects that can be controlled are too simple and the mass is too small. Life-sized spiritual clone. Xia Xingchen praised it. He closed his eyes, and his consciousness was immediately transferred to this spiritual clone, which was exactly the same as his own body, even more flexible, and truly as if he were at the command of his arm. It seems that my mental strength is strong enough to support such a huge mental clone. But, what is the use of this clone? Serving me tea, washing clothes and cooking? Xia Xingchen thought for a while, and laughed, amused by his boring idea. Driving a mecha. Xia Xingchen immediately thought of the real use of the mental clone. A person can only drive one mecha. If his mental clone can drive another mecha at the same time, then, wouldn't the combat power be doubled instantly? No, it's not just doubling the combat power. The coordinated combat of mechas requires a high synchronization rate of the mecha driver. In human history, there are also twin mecha masters who are in sync with each other and drive two mechas to fight together. The most famous one is the legendary mecha master Gemini, ranked 6th on the legend list. Gemini is a pair of sisters who drive two Gemini mechas. With the cooperation of the two, the combat power is extremely exaggerated. It is not a simple 1 + 1 = 2, but tripled or even quadrupled. However, even if they were twins with telepathic connection, the speed of their consciousness communication could not be faster than that of one person. If Xia Xingchen's spiritual clone could really drive a mecha, it would be equivalent to one person driving two mechas. The synchronization rate of coordinated operations would even exceed that of the famous Gemini. Qinglang Mecha. Xia Xingchen's mind moved, and he took out the Qinglang Mecha from his personal space, and appeared in the center of the meditation room. The spiritual clone slowly floated in the air, passed through the armor of the Qinglang Mecha, and directly entered the cockpit. Engine start. All parameters are normal. The optical brain did not realize that the driver was not Xia Xingchen himself, but a spiritual clone. In other words, the mecha optical brain equipped with a spiritual force sensing device does not care what the driver's body is. It only needs to detect the mental fluctuations of the mecha master to drive the mecha normally. The spiritual clone drove the Qinglang Mecha with very smooth movements, which was no different from Xia Xingchen himself. Of course, the spiritual clone was originally Xia Xingchen himself. Great. I didn't expect that my spiritual power would break through to level 50, and my superpowers would evolve into such a powerful skill. The improvement in combat power brought by the spiritual power clone is not inferior to those elemental superpowers. Xia Xingchen's heart was burning. But, I only have one Qinglang Mecha, and I don't have a second mecha as a backup. Xia Xingchen suddenly felt a dilemma. Xia Xingchen had the drawings of the Revenge Knight and Xianheng mecha in his hands, and he could ask Xia to help him build these mechas at any time. However, since Xia Xingchen had the Qinglang Mecha, he was somewhat disdainful of other mechas. There was no way. Even Hao Xian and Zhuo Liheng two famous mecha designers, worked with Xia Xingchen to create the Xianheng mecha. Compared with the Qinglang mecha, the performance gap is as big as Xingchen. A second Qinglang mecha? Xia Xingchen also had the drawings of the Qinglang mecha, the small statue carved from Qinglang wood. But he quickly rejected this idea. Even if he could find a second suitable Azure Dragon sacred tree, capture the Azure Dragon, and then find the Azure Dragon wings, he would never be able to find a second Thunder Heart. Without the Thunder Heart, the Azure Dragon mecha would be less than 10% as strong. Too weak. Chapter 1149 Suzuki Mecha. Xia Xingchen took a towel, wiped the sweat from his head, and walked out of the meditation room. A tall figure leaned against the wall at the door, obviously waiting for Xia Xingchen. It was Edward's subordinate Rom. This tall alien with dark green skin was seriously injured. In order to protect Edward, so he did not follow the Star Pirates to recapture the Blue Star. Rom, what's the matter? Xia Xingchen said with a pleasant face. Rom's face showed an expression of flattery, and he knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Xia Xingchen 3 times and 9 times. Rom has a close relationship with Edward, and is his personal guard. However, apart from Edward, only Xia Xingchen is willing to treat him equally. For Rom, equality means respect. What's more, the Qinglang mecha driven by Edward is obviously one of the 4 guardian beasts of the orcs. According to the legend of the orcs, the only person who can control the guardian beast is the incarnation of the beast god, except for the beast god. In Rom's heart, he has placed Xia Xingchen in the supreme position. Even better than Edward. Sir. Rom's mouth was very stupid. He hesitated for a long time. His dark green face turned black. He couldn't say a complete sentence. He could only take something out of his arms and handed it over respectfully with both hands. This is. When Xia Xingchen saw what Rom was holding, his pupils suddenly became the size of a needle tip, and his face was full of astonishment. A reddish-brown statue. At first glance, it was a phoenix with its wings spread. The feathers on its body and the flames burning around it were clearly visible. The carving was ingenious. A closer look revealed that this statue was a mecha statue, just like the Azure Dragon statue. The Suzaku statue, one of the 4 guardian beasts of the orcs. Sir, this is what the high priest of our tribe told me to give this statue to you. Rom whispered. High priest? Xia Xingchen was stunned. He didn't know any high priest of the orcs. In fact, Xia Xingchen didn't even know where the orcs' home planet was. The high priest. Rom quickly described the high priest's appearance. An image of a hunched over old orc with a cunning face appeared in Xia Xingchen's mind. It's him. Xia Xingchen suddenly remembered that he met an old orc on the Black Tower Star. He kept saying that he was the high priest of the orcs and sold the Azure Dragon statue and the Sky High technique to Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen thought that the old man was bragging, but he didn't expect that he was really the high priest of the orcs. This statue. Xia Xingchen took the Suzaku statue from Rom, opened his omniscience field slightly, and immediately detected it. This Suzaku statue is the same as the Azure Dragon statue. It looks like a statue on the surface, but it is actually the design drawing of Mecha. Suzaku Mecha. Xia Xingchen felt a burning sensation in his heart, and his body trembled slightly because of excitement. He just needed a powerful mecha, and Rom sent the drawings of the Suzuki mecha to him. This was like sending a pillow when he was sleepy, and he got what he wanted. Rom, what does your high priest want? Why did he give me the sacred object of your tribe? Isn't he afraid of God's punishment? Xia Xingchen quickly calmed down. He didn't want to receive a reward without merit. The blueprint of the Azure Dragon mecha can be said to be bought by Xia Xingchen. But the blueprint of the Vermilion Bad mecha was obviously given by the high priest of the orcs for free. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Xia Xingchen understood this truth. The high priest must have some purpose. Sir, the high priest is dead. Our tribe will soon face a great disaster. I hope you can help. Of course, it's not for nothing. We will take out the remaining 2 statues as a reward. Please agree. Rom relayed the words of the high priest. A great disaster. Xia Xingchen knew that some people had the ability to predict the future. The high priest of the orcs obviously had this ability and predicted the great disaster of the orcs. Xia Xingchen didn't hate the orcs, since the other party was very sincere and took out the sacred object of the tribe in exchange. It happened to be what Xia Xingchen needed most. Naturally, he would not refuse. Tell the high priest If I have the ability to help, I will definitely help. Xia Xingchen thought for a while and agreed. Thank you, sir. Rom knelt on the ground and bowed to the beastman. Xia Xingchen watched Rom turn and leave and immediately returned to the meditation room, calling the black cat Xioka to help analyze the Suzaku statue. Good stuff. Xioka jumped over and saw the Suzaku statue, and his cat eyes immediately glowed green. With Xioka's knowledge, he was surprised and praised it as a good thing. The Suzuki mecha must be good. With the experience of analyzing the Kinglang mecha, Xioka didn't take long to analyze the Suzaku statue and draw the blueprint. Xia Xingchen was very anxious. He grabbed the blueprint in his hand. As soon as he took a look, his face changed immediately. What materials are used to make this mecha? Why don't I recognize any of them? Xia Xingchen frowned and stared at the blueprint. Like the Azure Dragon mecha, Xia Xingchen could still understand the structure of the Suzuki mecha. However, the materials used to make the mecha were very rare. Unlike the Azure Dragon mecha, the Suzuki mecha was obviously a star skeleton beast armor. The materials used to make the skeleton were clearly written. The three-legged golden crow. The three-legged golden crow, isn't it the sunbird in mythology? Xia Xingchen's face was strange. Does this creature really exist in the universe? That's why you are so ignorant. Of course there is. Xioka said with great confidence. Do you think that the myths and legends of mankind are all illusory delusions? Don't forget whose blood is flowing in human bodies and whose genes are possessed. The transmission of memory does not rely only on the brain, but also on gene transmission. Humans are descendants of ancient humans. Even if they live on a small planet like the Earth, there will always be people whose memories are awakened and who recall the memories inherited from their ancestors. However, most people don't understand and think it's a dream, a myth. Memory is inherited through genes. Xia Xingchen was slightly startled, but he could understand what Xioka said. The way humans transmit memory is very simple. It can only be mastered through books, audiovisual works, and teachers' words and deeds, and by spending a lot of time. The mechanical race can directly transmit data, the soul race can directly infuse, and the Queen of the Zerg also has the ability to inherit memory. Compared with these races, the human memory transmission method is too backward. The memory transmission method of ancient humans is similar to the inherited memory of the Queen of the Zerg. Everyone can pass on part of their memory to their offspring through genes. It is precisely because of this that the civilization of ancient humans was extremely brilliant and could stand at the top of the universe. Humans actually have this ability. However, because the celestial beings imprisoned the gene lock on the genes of humans, this ability was lost. Chapter 1150 Hunting the Three-Legged Golden Crow. However, over the long course of time, there are always geniuses among humans who, by chance, break the genetic lock and get a glimpse of the memories of their ancestors. Such people are lucky, but also sad. In the long era of ignorance when technology stagnated, they had many names. Prophets, sages, saints, gods. Of course, the two words that more often refer to them are lunatics. The three-legged golden crow is indeed a holy star beast that lives in the stars. The number of this star beast is extremely rare. Even in the distant past, when ancient humans roamed the starry sea, the three-legged golden crow was a legendary creature that was hard to come by. Xioka introduced. The number of the three-legged golden crow is so small that most intelligent races doubt its existence. Surviving in a star? In the harsh environment of a star, there are also creatures that survive? Xia Xingchen widened his eyes with a look of disbelief. Life is much more tenacious than you think. Xioka said, the universe is huge, and it contains endless mysteries. There are many forms of life. Why are there no creatures on stars? Stars have abundant energy, and the creatures born are very powerful. For example, the three-legged crow is one of the best. Three-legged crow. Xia Xingchen rubbed his hands nervously. He wanted to hunt this legendary mythical creature in the star, to make his own Suzuki mecha. Don't be too happy too soon. Let's not talk about the strength of the three-legged crow. Now you have to solve two problems. First, how can you get close to the star and resist the terrifying high temperature of the star, to hunt the three-legged crow? Second, the number of three-legged crows is extremely rare. Where can you find the nest of the three-legged crow? Xioka poured cold water on Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen was dumbfounded. Let's not talk about the first point for now. There is no way to solve the second point alone. With the current technology of human beings, it is impossible to observe the situation inside the star. Even the most advanced scientific research ship on the coffin star cannot detect the star. What should we do then? Xia Xingchen asked hurriedly when he saw that Xiaoka was not in a hurry at all and his little paws were washing his face slowly. Meow. You've asked the right person. I do have a way. Xiaoka meowed proudly. Go find someone and you will definitely be able to get clues about the three-legged golden crow from him. You also know this person. I know him? Xia Xingchen frowned. Do I really know such a master? That's right. Not only do you know him, but you are also very familiar with him. The Star Pirate Overlord, Flame Louis. If I'm not mistaken, he is from the Fiery Sun Clan. The Fiery Sun Clan has magma flowing in their bodies, and they are not pure carbon-based creatures. They worship the Sunbird. They regard the Sunbird as a god, and worship it for a long time. The Sunbird is the three-legged golden crow. Xiaoka meowed. Flame Louis. Xia Xingchen raised the corner of his mouth and smiled. Who was it I thought? It turned out to be this guy. I almost beat him to death last time. Fortunately, I didn't beat him to death. Otherwise the clue would be lost. Xia Xingchen originally thought that the person who knew the clue about the three-legged golden crow was a respected old man. Most of these old people are hard to persuade. If the other person doesn't want to tell the clue about the three-legged golden crow, Xia Xingchen has no way to do it. However, the person who knew the clue turned out to be Xia Xingchen's rival, Flame Louis. Then, Xia Xingchen has 1,000 ways to make Flame Louis speak and tell everything he knows, like pouring beans out of a bamboo tube. There is no time to lose. Xia Xingchen immediately bought the latest information about Flame Louis through the intelligence network at a high price. Flame Louis is a Star Pirate Overlord and an alien race. He can't hide his whereabouts, even if he wants to. What's more, Flame Louis has no intention of hiding his whereabouts at all. After the Star Domain arc broke through the encirclement of the Star Pirates, Blackbird died. Although the God's Envoy was controlling his mind, most of the Star Pirates lost their minds and began to flee. Flame Louis also hurriedly said goodbye to the God's Envoy and returned to his base, the Volcano Star. Flame Louis was a foreign race and had no use to the God's Envoy. He had the powerful and mysterious Sun Clan as his backing. Therefore, the God's Envoy did not make things difficult for him and agreed to let him leave. Flame Louis was also beaten by Xia Xingchen and lost all his fighting spirit. He fled back to his own territory, the Volcano Star, and hibernated. He had already made up his mind. No matter who it was, no matter how much he was paid, he would never leave the Volcano Star, let alone offend Xia Xingchen again. When the storm passed and the situation stabilized, Flame Louis would wait for an opportunity to act. If Xia Xingchen defeated the God's Envoy and controlled the entire Chaos Star Domain, Flame Louis still had a way out, which was to leave the Chaos Star Domain and return to his home planet. In the territory of the Liang clan, Xia Xingchen would not dare to do anything to him. Besides, Liang Louis felt that he was a small character. Xia Xingchen had so many enemies. He might not go to the remote and desolate Volcano Star, which was covered with thousands of volcanoes and lava flowing all over the ground, to find trouble with him. Liang Louis did not know at this moment that he had been targeted by Xia Xingchen. On the Star Domain arc, Xia Xingchen handed the blueprint of the Suzuki Mecha to Jia. Jia's eyes flashed red and said, "Technology is not a problem. As long as there are materials, I can make this mecha quickly. Okay. There is no time to lose. I will go hunt the three-legged golden crow now." Xia Xingchen was excited. With the speed of the Star Domain arc, it only takes one day to reach Liang Louis territory, Volcano Star. Xia Xingchen contacted Edward and told him his plan. "Go with peace of mind. Geralt is no match for me at all. You don't have to worry about me. I have beaten him to the point where he is stripped of his armor and hiding in a rat hole and dare not come out." Edward laughed loudly, obviously having just won a battle. Azure Star is Edward's home base and has a good mass base. The Hunter Star Pirates under Geralt are only 5-star in strength. Edward is a Star Pirate Overlord with overwhelming strength. Fighting on Azure Star's home ground, there is no reason for Edward to lose. It's just that Geralt has already prepared for the battle. With the help of the fortifications left on Azure Star, it is impossible for Edward to win a quick victory for a while. Xia Xingchen is also very confident in Edward's strength. Brother Edward, I will come back to you as soon as I finish my business. Xia Xingchen made a promise. If there is anything, you must remember to send me a distress signal. No matter where I'm in the universe, I will come back immediately. Brother Xingchen, don't be fussy. Go and do your thing. I'm not so weak that I have to ask you to help me. Edward is also a proud person, saying with a smile, yeah. Xia Xingchen felt uneasy, but since Edward said so, he couldn't say much. Whoosh. The star domain arc turned into a silver arrow and suddenly disappeared in the starry sky. One day later, the star domain arc appeared in the sky above the volcano star. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.